Siv, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Well, as I kind of talked to you about this before, this is a long time coming for me because you are, well, as I was just saying off air, you were such a key part of my youth growing up and still in my life today through your music that I feel like I should start this off by thanking you on behalf of my parents for making my rebellion so wholesome and positive.
I, you tell your parents I say they're welcome for the rebellion, and I think for me it was sort of the same thing. I went through the whole white trash metal Queens rocker thing early because of my older brother, and drinking and drugs and all that. But by the time I was like 16, I'd be getting in so much trouble that I was like, this is fucking stupid. Like, I just can't live. There was a level of fear in my household all the time. So that just escalated it. And I was just over it. And then luckily, I found like hardcore and punk rock. And then I realized how annoying straight edge people were to everyone else. And that was enough for me to be like, oh, okay. Like you're like more annoying than the annoying people. So I was just like, all right, this is the route to go because we're just the dicks of the dicks. Cause like, it was just, for me, it was like perfect. But I think, when you can bother everybody, there's something enjoyable about it when you're 16 or 17.
Oh, absolutely. Like there's just my dad, booked Jimi Hendrix at his college, and like
Oh,
and like
wow.
did articles for Underground Magazine, had tried every drug imaginable, was very understanding when I got caught doing acid. But when I got into straight edge, that was the rebellion to the rebel. Like he was
Yes.
furious about it. Like that X looks like a Nazi symbol. Like it's ridiculous that
Yeah.
you wear that. And just, it was very threatening because there's something really challenging about saying I'm going to be sober, not because I have a problem, not because my religion tells me, but
Yeah.
because I'm choosing it.
Yes. Well, yeah, fear. There's that fear of I just don't think they understood it. Like my dad was the same way. He wasn't a drug guy, but it's just all the hypocrisy. You could smoke cigars and drink scotch and say every fucked up thing under the sun, but you can't choose to not do this, or you can't. The vegetarian thing threw them for a loop too. Everything was like you're a pussy,
Yeah.
what a doing this, you're not doing that, you got an earring, and it was just like, but that's when you know you're onto something, when you're aggravating. Abby Hoffman's son had a great quote, and he was just like, he's like, to rebel against my dad, I would have had to become a Republican. He's like, my dad, everything I wanted to rebel against, my dad was just like, yeah, fuck yeah, do that, throw a bottle, march, fight. So even if your dad's like a Jimi Hendrix, like acid head, it's like you could figure out some way to rebel, and that's what happens. Everybody just goes the opposite way. I mean, not everybody, but most of us.
Yeah, and I think out of all the rebellions, it's, Youth Crew specifically, but I know actually just straight edge hardcore in general. Like, what a positive rebellion for a kid to get at that age where you're like encouraged to actively do something.
It's I think it was empowering, um, to me and to like most of my friends, where I think we just felt, like we could do whatever. And the straight edge thing, it wasn't even so much the sobriety thing. It was just the crew kind of mentality. Like we were all in it together, and it was just, you had a gang, and you were just like, you were just able to do things. I mean, I still kind of have that in me from those days where I'm unbelievably overconfident for no reason. I'm just always like, yeah, we could do that. I could do that. No problem. That could be done. We'll figure it out. And if we can't, I just go, all right, that didn't work. But most of it's just about, I don't know. Like for me, still the strange thing is more like, I feel like it just makes you, it tests your metal and it steals you up. It's just, I come home and me and my wife joke almost every night. Come home from work, the kids all day with her, and I'm like, today's the day. That's it. I need a drink. And she's just like, today's the day. I'm like, I think it's gonna happen. And then she's just like, okay. And then I go, okay. And then that's it. We watch Jeopardy or some shit, and like that's it. But I just feel like for me, the idea of the not using the crutch and not getting the break just makes you I think it just makes you mentally tougher. It makes you stronger. And I know
Yeah,
it's cheesy and cliche, but it does.
it does. And I say this as someone who walked the Walter path as an edge breaker.
Yeah.
I started today with
I love the Walter Bath.
the Walter path, and in probably more ways than one I walk the Walter path, to be honest. But certainly in the drug edge breaking side of things, and like it is a crutch, but I find now I need that crutch, and I benefit from having that crutch, and I definitely have all respect to my friends that have kept walking that edge. But I
Oh, it's almost impossible. It's that, but my thing is, and I've definitely said this a number of times, like I get energy and power from doing things people say I can't do and from spite. I love the energy of spiting. And I sing for Gorilla Biscuits. Like I can't, I'm the only one, you know what I mean? Like Arthur's sober, but that's from, being an addict. That doesn't count in the straight edge scene for most people. I mean, I'm psyched for him that he's sober, but it's a different route. But like in my head, I'm just like, I'm not allowed to not be straight edge, and it's not because I wouldn't be able to function if I had a drink. It's because I couldn't take people talking shit to me. That's it. It's like that's what keeps me straight edge, I think, the most. Like I'm just like I'm not letting some fucking nerd talk shit to me about not being straight edge. So I'm just gonna keep doing it.
that's awesome. Well, now jumping back to the beginning, Civ, how did you get into punk? Do you remember the first time you ever came across it?
The first time I ever came across it, I wish I understood it and embraced it, because I would have been so down so early. We used to hang out at this park, we used to call it Ichiku Park, but it wasn't. But we had like a blacktop hockey team and football team, and it was called Ichiku Chiefs. The older guys, and they were all like just burnouts. But the right next to the park we hung out at was Lexington School for the Deaf. We had this giant school and complex for deaf kids. And sometimes I like say stuff about my own neighborhood, and I'm just like, why the fuck was that? Why was that school there in Jackson Heights? But at the park, there was mostly metalheads, and this was even pre hip hop. And there was a couple of dudes that just looked, different. And this one guy had like the leather jacket with the studs on it, ripped jeans, boots, a shag kind of haircut. He was already down with heroin, and he just looked cool. It looked like Sid Vicious. And he had like a metal buddy and another weird buddy, and they were like the outcasts sort of, but they hung. And they would listen to punk, and I never really knew what it was about. And then my friend Cass, he actually was my brother's friend. He's older. He's like 4 or 5 years older than me. And he was a guitar player and like a metalhead. And one day he came over and he was just like, yo, the Clash are at the School of the Deaf, like doing like some kind of like performance. And everybody was like, yeah, right. And he's just like, no, even the punk dudes were like, I mean, that would have made anybody, get up, um, and and he was like, no, seriously, like I just saw them get out of a limo, like they're there. And this is, I don't even know, this had to be like 82 or 83 or something, maybe earlier, maybe 80. And he went over and like saw them play, and like by himself with like all like parents and like things like that. So I never I think if I would have got into it, I would have got into like more of the heroin punk of it. But the first time I got into it was out of new wave. Like we kind of went my scene had the same, like the metal scene or the rock scene in the, playing handball with like denim vests on. We had our girl crew, but it was so incestuous. It was like, the whole park dated the same four girls for, years and years. And it wasn't my thing, but new wave had a lot of like new, cute, like girls and the hip hop scene. So that kind of attracted me to that. It was hip hop first, and it was new wave. But the I think I got a mixtape from somebody who came around from Astoria maybe, and it wasn't even marked. And I didn't even have a record player. I had a little tiny boombox where like the speakers would separate, and like so you can like feel like you're like doing some sound system shit. And like Motorhead was on it, and like the Circle Jerks, DRI, Exploited, stuff like that. And I gravitated mostly. I thought Motorhead song was the best song on there, and I was just like, I don't know who these guys are, but this, Ace of Spades song is fucking all right. But then, trying to think, I always give credit to my friend Danny Zick. We grew up together. We went to grammar school together and high school together, and he bought Victim in Pain. We used to go up to like Roosevelt or Northern Boulevard to the record stores and get records sometimes, and he bought Victim in Pain, and he brought that home. And we already had punk records, but that was the first like hardcore thing. And it wasn't, as soon as we turned it on, we were like, what the fuck is this? But the album cover, the gatefold, we were like, what? It was like seeing something from outer space. We never, what is this? Like, where is this? How do we get there? Who are these guys? Why are they wearing chains? Why are they all got their head shaved? Why are they all gigantic? What the fuck is going on? And that was it. We had to like, then the investigation started. And then in a really weird turn of events, we used to go to this teen club thing at my grammar school on like, I think it was like Wednesday nights. They would have the basement open. They knew everybody was on drugs and, doing whatever. And they would set up like, they had like rolling mats, or like we would play floor hockey on the like terrazzo floor, and it was in the bottom of like a church or something. And some of the girls that we hung out with worked there. And one night, this dude shows up to talk about sobriety and staying off drugs, and it winds up being John Joseph's brother, E. And he's like talking to the girls, and he's very charismatic. And he was like, yo, what are you guys into punk? You guys like punk rock music? And we were like, yeah, we're into punk. And he's like, you like hardcore? And we're like, yeah, we like hardcore. He's like, yeah, my brother sings for the Cro-Mags. And we were like, never heard of him. Just before the record came out.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, they're a big deal. And we were like, that's cool. Like, stop talking to the girls. And he was like, yo, I'll bring you guys down to CB's one day and all this. So there was all this weird like things pushing us in that direction, like from outside forces. So I think it was just like meant to be. We were supposed to like get down to CB's at some point, like, and we did.
So your brother was like a metal dude or a rocker?
Yeah.
So was he? Because like, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of adjacent, like the Dictators and
he was more Van Halen, Who, Zeppelin, like, he was like 70, 80s kind of stuff. Anything past that was kind of out of his wheelhouse. He, Jethro Tull, like concert tees, and every concert he had all of his stubs on the wall, like pinned up. He went to a lot of fucking shows. I mean, he saw Van Halen open for Black Sabbath before their record came out at the Garden. He came home, and I was like, how was Sabbath? And he was just like, awesome, but opening bands smoked them. He was just like, they're sick. And it was Van Halen. It
it's
was
interesting
pretty,
with Van Halen because they kind of were always, especially in the very beginning, punk adjacent. There's even like
oh yeah.
the photos of them like dressed new wave, kind of like they're trying to
Yeah.
like go to that
They were like
marketing.
glammy. They were like glammy.
Yeah, exactly. And there's like they played with the Dogs, the Detroit punk band, like early
Yeah.
punk band. So there's always that kind of like, yeah, the rockier side of the New York Dolls.
Yes. I mean, the dolls or like the dictators. Those are some of my favorite things. But that I think I got that later. Like I didn't get that before. I kind of went back, kind of circled back to that. I mean, I remember being into like hardcore when I was like 16, 17. And I didn't even know the Misfits. I saw the patches and they were on Punks, and I was like, fuck Misfits, stupid shit. And then then I was like, oh my God, this is the best, this is the best band ever. But I just didn't, you can't listen to everything at once. I have friends who are so they're so ensconced in music and going to shows through the years, and I would see them they would just go see everything. Like I would go to like a ska show, or I'd go to a rockabilly show, or like try to keep me away from a Stray Cats show. I would that's my shit. That's why I love Social D so much. Like, but because I grew up also listening to a lot of like 50s and doo-wop, just from like being in the car with my dad. And then my one of my first girlfriends, her dad was a music guy, and he gave me like this weird little briefcase full of tapes, and they were all like Frankie Lyman and like all doo-wop and stuff. And so that's something that is just always there.
Yeah, and there's also that, in the Ramones obviously as well, and there's Lenny Kaye doing those Pebbles compilations and stuff. There's like that, return to roots side of punk. You mentioned the Stray
Yeah,
Cats.
yeah. I mean that's the thing. Like punk is punk, but sometimes punk is too punk for me, where I'm just like, I need a little bit of, a little rock and roll in there, a little something.
When you were into the new wave stuff, did you like was it like bands like the Speedies, or was it just sort of like more Duran
No, it was
Duran?
like straight radio shit. I got into like Depeche Mode and The Cure and things like that. Again, it was just one of my girlfriends was heavily into it, and I remember going to see Depeche Mode at the Coliseum
Awesome.
in the 80s, and it was their first like big tour. And I had like a hardcore t-shirt on, like I had like a bleach blonde crew cut, and there was these other hardcore dudes that they were like new wave chicks, and they were like, yo, what's up, man? Youth Today shirt on. And it was just, and we were all just like the nod, like, yeah, man, Depeche Mode, fuck it, let's go. And but that shit's great. I mean, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just, it's just teenage shit. And girls, like the hardcore scene had, in New York, had maybe, I don't know, 10 girls in it most days. And it was just like, and they were scary as shit, some of them. And they were dating the upper management, the top tier guys,
Warzone
so
Women.
Warzone Women, like just the title kept you back. You're like, and or like, like Jimmy and Roger always had beautiful women on their arm, but they were Jimmy and Roger. You know what I mean? Like I didn't stand the chance. So we went on the outside, and it was also neighborhood. It was neighborhood girls, so it was. I don't know. We had a good crew, so we were no complaints.
Yeah, I think the 85 is when you first go to CB's, right?
Yeah, that was the first. We went for my friend Danny, the AF guy. We went for his birthday at we drank oh god, we drank like, I think I drank something crazy like 17 wine coolers. I wasn't into beer because I didn't like the way it tasted. So I would drink pink champagne or like wine coolers. And we sat behind the bank. We had this weird bank building on our corner where we used to like hang out on the steps. And we got really drunk. And then we got on the train and we were like, all right, we're going to CB's. And in our heads, it was 24/7 moshing and like hardcore. We didn't know that it was on Sundays or like a special thing. We didn't know about the Village Voice and finding shows. So we just were like, we're going to fucking CB's and we're going to slam dance, and this push pit's going to be sick and it's going to be great. So we get there, and they let us in, and we sit down, and there's tables set up, and there's a band setting up, and there's a couple of like guys sitting at a table next to us, and they had like Marine or like Navy haircuts, but they had on like big like spike gauntlet bracelets, and they had like black under their eyes, like 7 Second style. And we were drunk, and we're like looking at them, they're looking at us, and we're like, yo, if these guys want to slam, like we're fucking gonna slam the shit out of these guys. So the band that played was called Wolf and Cookies, and they played. No one really danced. The tables were set up, and we just kept. The waitress was like, "Listen, I know you guys are not old enough to drink. If you order, we will serve you. So just keep ordering." And we were like, "Deal, fucking deal." But we didn't know how to order drinks, and I don't think they had pink champagne or wine coolers. So she's like, "What do you want to drink?" And I'm like, uh, "My dad drinks. Let me get a 7 and 7." So I drink a 7 and 7. She comes back. "What do you want?" And I'm like, "My brother drinking rum and coke." I was drinking rum and coke. And then she comes back, and this one did me, and she's like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Shit, I didn't know you could keep ordering the same thing." So um, I thought Eddie Murphy. I said, "Let me get a White Russian." and, and that one nearly killed me. So, but
Yeah, throw milk on top of that cocktail.
oh, give me that. Give me milk on top of that. And I lasted the longest. Danny and some people were throwing up in the bathroom. It was the first time I went to Stevie's bathroom. He was throwing up in the bathroom, and that was an experience. CB's bathroom in the mid '80s, and then we got into a. This is a gross story, but it's okay. I got in the cab, and he's in the front seat with the cab driver. We got our friends with us. I'm in the back seat, passenger side, and the window's open. And he starts throwing up out of the cab, and my window's open. So it's like my eyes are shut. I'm trying to hold together, and it's coming in and like splashing me in the face. And I'm like you like kind of lick your lips and you're like, what's happening? Like, what is that? And then I realize it, and we get out, and there's just this huge throw up swoosh on the side of the guy's cab driver's bum. But there was four of us, so he just like shut up and took it. And then we were walking down Northern Boulevard. He made us get out on Northern Boulevard, and there was an Arby's. And I was like, maybe I'll eat something, I'll feel better. So I thought I got a hamburger, but I got like a roast beef sandwich. And I was so drunk, and there was like the cheese and the roast beef, it's falling out. And I'm like, what's wrong with this burger? Like, this is disgusting. It's all hanging. And then my dad was away hunting. And I came home at like, I don't know, the sun was up, it's like 4 or 5 in the morning. And I lay, my mom hears me, she yells, like, "Get in bed, you're late," and whatever. So yeah, I laid down. And then I wake up, and I'm in like tidy whities, and I have a pile of roast beef between my legs, and I puked the whole bed. And luckily I got up and threw up on myself and then laid back down, or I would have been dead. So I have to be up at like, that was a Friday night, I think. I had to get up and work at the laundromat. So I had to get up still drunk, like 2 hours sleep. I covered my throat. I got the roast beef out, but I had to hide the puke. So I made my bed, and I had this cologne, this hot in the street cologne, Halston Z14. It's my signature scent at the time. And I sprayed it on my bed to try to hide the throw up smell. And my mom never left the house, so I had to wait like a week before I could change the sheets and like clean that orange mat. So it was a rough week to sleep. But I had to work drunk all day, and then all my friends, they would come and hang out. They all showed up banged up, and they were like, "Woof." I was like, "Yeah, that was rough lesson."
Wolf and cookies.
Wolf and cookies, man. We did wolf and roast beef.
What was the vibe of that band?
Punk, like just kind of like noisy punk. I mean, I don't really. It's kind of a blur. I just, it was one of those things where, there's certain things where you keep in long-term memory. I was like, all right, I'm gonna need to remember the name of this band and like what I ordered. Like, this is a good night, and something's happening. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Sometimes I can't remember. Like, people I play with, like Charlie and Luke, they remember everything, every show, every club, like what we ate. I don't have space in my brain for that. Like to me, like there's certain things that are going to be there forever, like locked in long-term memory and stories. But day to day, he'll say like, "Oh, we're going to go play." And I go, "We played there." And he's just like, "Yeah, man, remember?" that guy Phil had that cool shirt on, and he's like the fucking what is it, like the caribou from that cartoon where he's just like, remember he had that Windsor knot. He just remembers everything, Charlie. And I'm just I'm like, dude, did I have fun? And he's like, yeah, you had a great time. I said, oh, great. I was like, did I enjoy that part of Minneapolis? Oh,
That
wonderful.
that's growing up in Cleveland versus growing up in New York City.
Yes, I think so.
I guess there's just like so much shit happening around you constantly when you're in New York that it's
You don't even think about it.
yeah. Yeah, I think
And
it's probably
yeah, Charlie's good like that because he's also still like he's like super fan about music and musicians and seeing shows, like he's dedicated to music and going out to seeing stuff. Where I'll just be like, oh, I'm good fuck. Like, where people are like, you want to go see it? I'm like, dude, if I never have to sit in another club and see or hear music live again, I could care less. It's don't need it. I like music on all the time, but that's mostly from like tinnitus. But I just, the idea of like, or people would be like, oh, you haven't played in, 3 or 4 months, you miss it. And it's just like, how many shows we fucking played? Like I love it, but I don't miss it. It's not like a relationship that you miss, you miss talking shit, maybe that hour on stage, but you don't miss the 8-hour drives or the just sitting in a back room for 5 hours because there's nowhere to go and it's raining out.
preach, brother. Preach.
Mm.
I think that's a lead singer thing though.
Mm.
I think that's um I had a friend who passed away who told me one time that like as a lead singer you're going to wear it differently than everyone else in your band. And I've
Mm.
thought about that a lot over the years, but your relationship to music is a lot more intimate as the lead singer of a band in a way that I think because you're playing stuff and because you're not necessarily engaged. I mean, necessarily in particular the performance space and like being live and
Yeah.
playing these shows because you're the one that has to look these people in the eyes. You're the
It's a
people.
responsibility factor for me. That's what's exhausting. I think the physicality of what I try to do and the responsibility for the show. Because no one ever looks at like the bass player and goes, you didn't really bring it tonight. Everyone felt it. A bad show. You know what I mean? It's like I look at Arthur and I want to punch him sometimes because he's like, I'm dripping wet, I'm bleeding, and a black eye, and he's like, he's not, his pants aren't even like unpressed. He does, you know what I mean? He doesn't want to get bunchy knees, and he's in like a sweater, or like he'll be playing in an ascot and a hat, and he's like, and he'll be like, it's freezing up here, and I'm like, well, come and come and stand where I'm standing. It's different. It's a whole other region, but that's what I think makes me, try to put on a performance and make this show what it is. I'm trying to make everybody. It's also the like Italian in me, like the host thing. I got to make sure everybody's having a good time. I'm like, you in the back, you need a drink, you hungry, what do you want? I got, we'll get you something. And but people in the front, they want the craziness. The people in the middle want to dance, and the people in the back still want a good performance. So it's like you try to keep that going. And obviously, a smaller packed house is so much easier, and you're so much more relaxed, and you're don't have to work as hard. But like last week or whatever, punk rock bowling, you're in the desert, you're in Las Vegas, you're on a street, you're looking at the stoplights going on and off, and you're trying to make it feel like an intimate setting. And a hardcore show, not like a big punk concert with the or a rock concert with the barricades and all the production. So that's where my mind goes, where I'm just like, okay, you got to try to make it good for everybody. And I don't know about you, but like for me, like there could be 1,000 people going off and having the best time, and there's one fucking dick in the corner with a sad face or flipping you off, and that's who you see, and that's who gets in your head.
Yeah, and
And it's
you'll see the person who leaves. It'll be a
Yeah,
room full of people having a great time. You'll see like the
the
trickle
door.
out of people, and
Yeah,
you're like, oh fuck.
I'm
I
losing
f-
them. That
Yeah,
happened.
there's an emotional engagement that, not to say that other people in the band and don't have this, because they do have an emotional engagement, but like they don't have that kind of like we're like mascots at the same time. Like we take it all in, and so there's an
Oh yeah.
emotional commitment to that show that, like, when I go and see other shows, a lot of times it stresses me out because I'm like, oh, I'm at work.
Not only that, I watch other people and I can't even enjoy it. I critique it. I'll like I'll like lean over to my wife and I'll be like, that guy just drummer just fucked up. Or I'll just be like, this guy's dialing it in. He's about to, this isn't good. He shouldn't have done that, you know? And I'm like, because I'm worried more about the perform. I'm not like, I think more of myself as like a singer. I'm not, I don't think of myself as a musician. I think of myself as like a singer performer. And that's my gig, that's my job, that's my wheelhouse, whatever. But even but it's also, I just always try to bring it back to what hardcore is to me and what shows were to me and what got me psyched. Like the idea of like, you're playing in your street clothes, the band is interchangeable with the next band, and like there's no separation between the audience and the band, and we're all on the same level. We're all on the same plane. Like I know we're the band. I know you're that you paid to like come and see us, but my experience tonight is no more important or even less than your experience because you're the one that came to see us play. And I know as people get older and people get more popular bands, that's like people, other musicians, and people will be like, "You're fucking stupid." Like that's not true. But coming from the hardcore scene, and I want the CB's vibe, from like the late 80s. That's what I try to, no matter where we are, I try to project that. We just played in Rancho Cucamonga before Vegas. My friend Chris Les put a show on. We always trust Chris. He rarely steers us wrong. So occasionally it happens. And I don't really ask questions. I just go, okay, people with a good track record. So we show up and it's literally a food court in Rancho. There's a 1 foot stage. There's wedges, like 2 side fills, and a cement floor. And they sold 700 tickets. There was about 800 people there with guests and stuff. We sold out, and it was just curtains, black high curtains, huge space. Not one person that worked there besides Chris. There was two like sound guys, and front it was like it's two sound guys, and no security, no nothing. And the band, Chris, and 700 people. And as soon as it started, like Walter got smashed into, and he just came off of a tour with Hot
Hot
Water
water
Music.
music. Yeah.
Yeah, so different vibe. And first fucking note, some kid gets smashed into Luke's drums, knocks his cymbal onto his fucking floor tom. Mics go down. Walter gets knocked into his amp. And I just turned around and they're both just like shaking their head at me. Like, I'm like, this isn't my fault, but I understand. I understand because it kind of is. But so I just said, hey, everybody, step back. And the poor monitor guys were so worried about these wedges. I just said, just strike everything. Because it's just, all they're going to do is a tripping hazard and break. So I said, we forget about hearing. Don't worry about it. Muscle memory. So we struck the stage and it wound up being awesome. I mean, while we were playing, it wasn't that awesome because we were just like in getting tossed around like we were in like a riot. But afterwards, it was like, okay, that's what makes this shit awesome. The lawlessness and the no rules kind of a vibe. At least for me, I enjoy it.
Yeah, like hardcore is, I think, the only music in the world where the sonic presentation comes secondary to the audience involvement. Like I can't think of anything else where a
Yes.
show that you could not play a single note and the show could still be fucking unbelievable just because the crowd's going off and singing along to everything.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Like at this place, like people were like, "We can't hear you," but the crowd was so fucking loud that didn't matter. It sounded like I was killing it. I was just like, I think I sound great. It was really just people singing along. And but I mean, that's I mean, like we were literally in a food court. Like I don't know how great the sound system's going to be, but it is what it is. But I mean, to me, it's funny that we're I don't know, stupid or trusting that we would even agree to that and like play a food court at this point in our in our lives. It's just like, yeah, okay.
But I think that's what keeps the band from being like, and actually I found punk rock bowling the vibe of even like the older sort of like, torch bearing first wave English punk bands. I thought they were all fucking awesome. Like
Yeah.
999 blew me away. Like I thought everyone's vibe was really cool. But I think that's what keeps it from being some nostalgia thing, is the fact that it's still you guys playing like a food court to then you guys playing a street in Las Vegas and
Yeah.
people going off, and it's still the same band. Like I don't
Well, we're
really
conscious. We're conscious about it. There's different levels of protecting the idea of a legacy or protecting the brand. But we're pretty lucky. We get away with doing some stupid shit, and people, just I mean, even like the merch, like the Bullwinkle shirts. It's like, you judge can't do that, So so we get away with shit because we just don't care. Because it's like, what are you gonna, what is it gonna do? Ruin my career? You know what I mean? It's like, who cares? We're so past it. It's just fun now. So it's like, I'm not worried about. We're not gonna make it. So we just do what we want.
I I think the biggest difference I've noticed in the band from that first reunion, like we opened for you guys in Toronto on that with Murphy's Law and
That
come
was
back here.
wild.
And I didn't see you the whole day because you were warming up your voice. And I don't know, maybe this is my false memory on it, but like it seemed like
Possible.
it was like, and it felt like the whole band was still, I guess, trying to get the bearings of it versus last time. Well, I was in Vegas, but like in Brooklyn, where it
Yeah.
was like the most incredible. Everyone was present. Everyone seemed like in that room with the audience. Like what a great vibe. Like it feels like there's
Yeah.
been like a comfort level that's been achieved
It's
between.
very. I think it took me so long. I still struggle with it because I get nervous before every time we play. My main concern is finding somewhere to like take three shits before we play. And I don't know why I can't get normal with it, but it's just part of the process. But I think on that 2006 tour when we did the US and Canada, we were finding our feet as friends again and people. And um, there was a lot of like, damage and mistrust and just all this weird shit that we kind of had to get past. And that CB show kind of made us do it. We came back to play CB's before it closed, and we all went upstate and like hung out and had like barbecue and chilled together and like reconnected. And then that was like the catalyst for us playing again. But even that, like that tour we booked with Matt Pike, and I put a tour bus on my credit card. I held it on like a credit card, and we had no management, no nothing. And there was a lot of like not fighting, but Walter was just like, "What about two like luxury vans?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to drive. Who's going to drive? You know what I mean? Like, you want to be driving?" I'm like, "It's more expensive than a bus. Like, we just everything's in the bus. It's $1,000 a day, all the merch, all the equipment. Like, let's do it." And when all the shows were sold out before we even started, pretty much. And then I was just telling the story last night. My daughter asked me something, and it was like a week out. We were practicing, and he was like, "I don't know if we should do the tour." And I was like, "Okay." In my head, I'm like, "Calm down," because at that point I was ready to flip a table. Like all the merch is done, everything's done. And he was like, "I don't know if it's a good look. I don't know. I don't know." And he's having this, crisis. And then Alex, it was like he was drunk and he was just like, "Yeah, I don't know either." And I was like, "Well, you can shut the fuck up. Like, just have another drink and don't don't put any gasoline on this for me right now." So, I just had to be like, okay, let's yeah, okay, you want to cancel? Cool, I'll make some calls. And then the next day he was like, no, I think it's gonna be great. And I was like, okay, great. Whew. But I knew it was too far gone to do it, but I wasn't, one of the first times I was smart enough not to like freak out and argue. So I just, but then we did it. And then it was like, everybody was like, I wish this was longer. And it was like, yeah, of course, because every night we have like amazing bands, amazing rider. We're sleeping in the bus. We're playing sold out shows. We're getting, this is the thing I talked to Mike Judge about too, when he came back to play. It's like you have 20 years of an audience that's never seen you play. So that's mind blowing when like you stop playing in 92 and then you come back in 2006 and you tour, like you can tour the world, and all these people who have your record and your record, you don't know that they're out there, and you don't know the audience you can play to. When you go used to playing to like 150 to 200 people, and then you're playing to 1,000 people and everybody's singing and it's the best. And I'm glad we got the chance to come back and do it. I'm glad Judge got the chance to come back and do it too, because it's just, you would have missed all these great experiences.
Yeah. It's no, there's so much I want to unpack there with you, but like it's interesting when I looked at the timeline of things because in my mind I'm like, oh, there's this huge gap here and there's this huge gap there,
Yeah,
but the gap between the end of GB and the start of Civ is like a couple years, a few years.
sure. Yeah, it seemed like a big thing.
Yeah, and then the gap between Civ ending in 2000, right? When
2002 was our last show in
2002, okay,
Japan. Yeah,
and then your reunion with GB,
2005,
that's like once again a few years.
3 years. Yeah,
It's almost like a continuous story when you look at it from a distance, but I imagine inside it seems very fraught the whole time.
I think looking back at this, it's going to seem like a really interesting tale, but living it, it's it's been it was basically like the beginning was I have no musical aspirations. I get asked to sing with Walter. I say yes just to burn our my friend Gus, who said he wanted to sing, because, and I was just like, he didn't ask you, he asked me. And that was as that's as much as I needed. So I said, yeah, I'll sing. I didn't know anything about it. So that happens. We set, not to be funny, but we set little goals that were get a demo tape, play CBs, play the Ritz, put a 7-inch out, and then we can die happy. If we can get an album, that's impossible, but if we can get an album, well, that would be cherry on top. Like that's all we needed. We just want to be part of the scene. And then the 90s hit, and Walter had musical aspirations way beyond mine, and he wanted to do other stuff. And I always considered myself more of, I always worked. I always just assumed I'd be working, not a working musician or like an artist, but I consider myself more of an artist than a musician. So I didn't have like it wasn't as serious to me to like kind of think of that. It was a side thing for me. It wasn't like a job or a career. And so when the band got weird, we had like a scab lineup by like 92 of just like players that we thought were going to work, but the chemistry really wasn't there. And then the Walter path, as you put it, like happened. And then like Tom Capone happened, and then Quicksand happened. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I started tattooing. And that was like, we might have just been dragging that out for however long until it kind of really fell apart. But I got to start tattooing, and then became my own, wasn't part of a group, it was me. And I enjoy that aspect, because if you fuck up, it's on you. If you do good, it's on you. It's not a band, it's not a group. You're not pulling anybody with you. No one's pulling you with them. So I did that from 92 to 95. And then Walter was like, hey, and there was there was other things attached to it, but at the surface was, hey, I got, a few songs and I feel like hardcore is going in a really weird direction. And, and I was like, you're worried about the direction of hardcore, like why you're doing, your thing. And what are you talking about? So I was like, no, I'm good. I'm working. I opened up a shop. I don't have time for any of this. I'm trying to fucking figure this tattoo thing out and like owning a business thing and adult stuff. And it was like, no, let's just do like a couple songs. It'll be cool. And then that just rolled into 7 years of my life of just being on tour like 8 months out of the year and fucking, dancing like a puppet on a fucking string for Atlantic and learning a lot of lessons and, you know, fucking so many brutal, so many more brutal nights than any GB night has ever like cost me, like rock and roll shit and MTV shit and major label shit and just being on the road nonstop, brutally mentally torturing, just nonstop on the road,
Well, you guys were playing the game at that point.
we
Like,
were in it. We were in the game hard, and but without the benefits. Like if you're doing that and there's $1 million in the bank, you can say, okay, just shut up and do it. But when you're just you're in this grind and again, like I turned down, I kind of regret turning it down now, but at the time I was like, I can't do this. We got offered to tour with Ozzy and Korn, opening for Korn and Ozzy. And we had just come off some tour. And I was like, I can't do it. And they were like, dude, it's Ozzy. You love Sabbath. I said, I love Ozzy. Don't know how much we'll hang out. I probably might see him or meet him one night. But I said, dude, arenas opening for Korn. Do you know the fucking brutality that will be? I said, I can't do it. Like, I'm not mentally fucking strong enough to do it. I don't want to do it.
there,
Like we opened for Kiss and Doc. If I'll switch gears for 1 second, I'll tell you this quick story. So McGee Entertainment was Kiss's manager. Doc was, genius in that world, and Scott was our manager, his brother. So it was this nepotism. We were on the Warped Tour, and they were like, "Hey, you guys want to open for Kiss at the Garden?" We were like, "Duh!" So we fly home, and we're getting ready to play, and it's so involved, but it's like that 2 days is like a podcast in itself. But I go upstairs about 10 minutes away from playing. And Doc McGee introduces me to Ron Delsner. And Ron Delsner's got like a fucking high on a gold chain. He's in a purple suit. He's got a purple shirt, purple glasses. He's gold, everything. He's everything you want him to be.
yeah.
And Ron Delsner, Doc McGee, and me. And it sounds like a movie, right? So he's just like, hey kid, you got your work cut out for you. And I'm like, why? Like I got on my creepers, my fancy outfit. I'm playing the Garden. Like I'm good. Like I'm sick. You don't even know who you're dealing with here. And he's just like, it's a Kiss crowd. And I was just like, what do you mean? And he's just like, they don't give a fuck who's opening up. They want to see Kiss. He's like, did you hear what happened last night? And I said, I'm like, no. And this is literally 10 minutes before we play, 5 minutes before we play. And he goes, what was that band? I said, Degeneration. Like they got a radio hit. Like they're rocking, And he goes, oh, they got booed off the stage, like third song. And I said, what? And he's just like, yeah. He's like, they don't give a shit. He's like, you better figure it out. And I was like, holy shit. So I kind of like group meeting really quick. I'm like, listen, don't start the way we usually start. And Sammy's like, no, no. I said, this is not our show. Like, please listen to me. I just talked to Ron Delsner. We're walking into a lion's den. So Arthur walks out on stage and just plugs his fucking bass in. And somebody in the front row just screams, get off the stage, you fucking like, and And he turned around. He was like, "Oh my God, it's like high school out there." What? He like came back on the curtain. He's like, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Oh yeah, it's trust me, I heard it. We're in trouble." So make some noise, lights go. I run out with Mike, and I give him a "What's up, New York?" and they all scream. And I was like, "This is our backyard. This is our hometown. We're from New York City. It's a dream to be at the Garden. It's a dream to be opening up. We're here to warm you up for Kiss. Are you ready to see Kiss?" And the whole place screams, and then we start. So it was just mind fucking like juggling. Every time we took a break, I made them do the wave, like they did the wave for the Garden. I said, "Hey, sound man," I said, "Hey, lighting guy, put the lights on let me see these beautiful people." And the sound guy was cool. And the lighting guy was cool. He put the whole house lights on. They start throwing beer across at each other, screaming, pointing, flashing, tits. And next song, I was just getting through. And then we did what Can't Wait a Minute More. They used to play that at the Rangers games at the Garden. So everybody there was fucking Ranger fans. So we get off the stage unscathed, high fives. And Rondell's just like, "Come smoke a cigar with me, kid." That was fucking, that was you just gave a lesson out there. And I was like, "Well," I said, "honestly, dude, if you didn't tell me, I would have just went out there like a complete asshole and just been like, look how sick I am. Like, let's rock, you know?" But that's what I mean. Like those tours were fucking punishing opening for, we've opened for like the Toadies, No Doubt. No Doubt was actually awesome.
That
But
was that was my wife's first concert. You were the first punk band she ever saw live. She wanted me to tell
no
you that.
way.
Yeah,
With No Doubt.
yeah, with No Doubt, Vandals and No Doubt, and you guys, and it was
Yes.
a huge, huge show for her.
That was a fun show for us.
Yeah, like as punishing as those experiences are for the bands, I think those are so important for the very small handful of kids in the crowd that get it,
Yeah.
and that'll be their gateway. Like that's their
Well,
entry point.
everybody said, a lot of people said to us that Sib was their gateway to hardcore or punk. And because it was accessible and they were like, it was a little off center. But, I was going to say, we go back to what you were saying about not being present or not being, doing like the warm up and stuff. Like those days I would spend an hour stretching out and an hour warming up just because I wanted to be able to perform every night and not like lose my voice. And I didn't know what my physical or mental or, vocal capability was still. And those shows were like, we had 18 shows in a row sometimes on those tours. So, you have to be prepared. I lost my voice. I took lessons from this guy, Don Lawrence, and he told me, you can't lose your voice. He's like, you cannot lose your voice. It can be strained. It can be fucked up. You have mucus or things on your vocal cords, but you cannot lose it. You can always warm it back up. And he put that in my head and I believed it. And we went to Japan and we were playing the first time in Tokyo. It was right after that. It was like 2008. It was like on that run of years where we were like time touring, doing like a world tour. And we were playing Tokyo. And like in that main street, they have that huge like jumbotron. And it was just a giant gorilla head on that day because we sold out the show. And it's like 2,000 people, and that thing was in that center, And we were fucking like freaked out. But it wasn't hardcore. It wasn't the hardcore kids for this many years. It was like 25 years or 30 years of hardcore kids from Japan all came, like salarymen. We had the 15 to 50-year-old kind of crowd, and I couldn't talk. Japanese MTV came to interview me, and I was like, and everybody's looking at me. I was like, I can't talk. So everybody went to go walk around and go have lunch. And I got 2 big bottles of warm water, and I went in this laundry room that was like 4 feet by 15 feet, like with a table to fold clothes in this arena, kind of not arena, club. And I walked back and forth for like 4 hours just by myself in this room with water doing warm-ups. And by the time we played, it was fine. But like that's like shit, drummer shit and singer shit where you just got to kind of maintain the body. Me and Luke always complain about we should get like hazard pay or body physical damage pay. But it's I think now we're used to it and we're more comfortable, and I don't like freak out that I'm not gonna have the wind or I always have to like do cardio and stuff before I go just to see if I can do it, like even like yesterday and today I was like, I gotta work out, I gotta do something but then Mary's like, you just played Vegas like a week ago, you're fine, you
Yeah.
didn't lose it. you're okay. So I'm like, all right.
Well, it's like this Faustian deal where drummers and singers pay for it with their bodies, and drummers more so. I think like the
Yeah.
drummers burn out before a singer will burn out in a band physically,
Yeah.
but we pay for it with our minds. Like the psychological effects of not having a voice and knowing that there's I would be very lucky 2,000 people for fucked up, but 2,000 people that are there to see you.
Yeah.
It's like fuck. I am carrying this on my fucking back right now.
Yeah. 100%. And it is, it's a mental, and the toll it takes when you feel like you didn't do a good job.
Hmm.
That's another, that's another mind fuck.
It's something that I think we kind of have to do, and that's what broke me as a straight edge guy. Like was the
Yeah.
going out every night, trying to be that master of ceremonies, especially when it's not going well, because you still those people that paid to see you, even if there's not a lot of them, they paid to see you, so you owe them a show, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and then trying to wind down that night to do it again the next day. Eventually, I was like, my brain needs a break,
Yeah.
and it was alcohol was definitely not something I wanted to fuck with, so it wound up being weed, which is
Yeah.
definitely agreed with me, and I'm glad I found it because there's a lot more. Well, we both know tons of people that found self-destructive paths to try and cope with this shit,
Oh yeah.
right?
And weed's different now. Now it's like science, you know what I mean? There's so many forms of it that one of my customers, he's a retired fireman, and he became like a weed scientist once he like retired. He's like, I have weed to wake me up, I have weed to put me to bed, I have weed to calm me down, I have weed to fucking have fun with. And he was, it's just the strains and the specifics of it, and even like mushrooms or microdosing, like any of that stuff, all that natural shit. I'm like, whatever you need to like kind of get through at this point with for people, like not everybody's built the same, and not everybody will, ever think the same way. So I'm more like, listen, I don't give a fuck. You're not hurting somebody. You're not doing anything to me directly. Like, do whatever gets you through, because life's long and life's tough, especially when like things are not, going great for you. I just feel like this the I guess it does. I don't really think about it, but I guess being like the performer, and carrying that weight, like we're talking about, that we're able to carry on stage, gets you through everything else. It's very hard for someone to like emasculate me or alpha male me or break me on a day to day, because of what I've done in the past, where you can control how a show goes, or you're able to herd, 500 or 200 or 1,000 people, and bend them to your will almost, and direct them. I feel like I watch bands now do a lot of like, I try not to do it because I'm more into the free will of things. I don't want to like talk people into things, but I watch bands do the, like the sick of it all style, or bands where they're like, all right, now you're going to do a circle pit. Now you're going to do a wall of death. Now you're going to do this. And I think younger bands are doing it too, or like Terror. I see Terror do it, or Drain does it. And it's a good way to, run a show. And people do want to be part of the performance, and it allows them into that performance. But I think if you're a person that's capable of doing that, then like you should be able to, handle the, day-to-day kind of gig. But if it doesn't go well, like you said, then it's like, where does that leave you after a couple of duds, as a performer?
I think that's when it becomes a performer versus like a hardcore singer. Because like as a hardcore singer, it's like sort of this honest interaction, like you're saying. Like there's no stage;
Yeah.
they're part of your world. I'm not saying that these bands don't do that in their performances, but like to be able to go to those kind of like you did with Kiss, like these certain tricks that will engage an audience, and it's not necessarily as honest as if you're just going out there and like, here
Oh
I
no.
am.
There was definitely nothing honest about that, except the idea that I was trying to just make it happen. But I think that's the difference between playing a rock show, or that was a good thing with Civ, where we would play these arenas and we'd play festivals, and it wasn't you know, people will put up pictures of like, you know, them playing in front of 70,000 people in Germany, like 6 show today. It's like, motherfucker, that wasn't your show. Like Slayer played. You know what I mean? I played with them. They weren't there to see you. You know, I was like, you know, we did that one time with Rage Against the Machine. It was just like, yeah, we played. It wasn't our show. But that's the thing with too, like hardcore makes you have to be honest about things like that. But I think when those guys are controlling, well, even like like the newer bands and newer singers, it's like the tricks. You got to learn that stuff by just playing and touring. And you know when you talk to somebody who's a road dog and someone who's in the trenches, even if it's a roadie or a sound guy or you know a guitar tech, they're weathered. It's like you guys have that like trench mentality together, and like it's if you especially if you toured with people. Like I'm still friends with people I did the Warp Tour with, just because those tours were so amazing but also brutal, and we were in it together. Like it's war. It's you against you know everybody, and people who don't tour heavily and don't or never like people who like are in big bands or play like who become famous because they did like something on like fucking TikTok or YouTube and then they're like playing shows. It's like you didn't earn it. You didn't go in the van, you know.
Well, and you look at like indoctrination to cults, you know, like they poor diet, they will restrict your sleep, they will do all these things to kind of like build you up and then tear you down. It's exactly what happens when you're on the road, right? Like
Yeah.
the audience is building you up just to be torn down by the van life the next
Yeah.
day.
Well,
And
it was eating broke me more than anything
yeah,
because being vegan, I mean literally head in hand crying sometimes from just lack of food and nutrition.
well, especially when you're doing that at the time when it's like not like today where McDonald's
No,
has got vegan options.
no, there was no. I remember being. I always tell this story a few times. We were like hadn't eaten and like probably you know literally like fuck besides like peanuts and like water in like 2 days. We were playing a squat tour in '89 in Europe with these squatter punk rock dudes in a van. And we literally played a squat in like fucking Transylvania, like a castle. And it's raining. There's dogs. There's like garbage cans on fire inside the place, warming it. And it's somewhere. I'm sorry, babe. So we play this thing, and they're like, "We're gonna order you guys, you know, pizza." So I was like, "Oh, great, you know, fine." So I tried to order like a vegan, just a, you know, veggie tomato bread pie, and it comes, and there's like you know, 5 pizzas, and I can't believe I'm gonna eat. And I start cracking them open, and they're all pepperoni and cheese, and everybody's just taking the pepperoni and like throwing it off and like the oil of the pepperonis. And I'm like, I'm not eating, I'm not eating this, I'm not eating this, I'm not eating this. And they're like, fuck it. Everyone's like, I'm eating the cheese pizza, take the pepperoni off. And I got so it's like drizzling. I'm in like the woods next to a castle, pitch black. And I get so mad, I take my own sneakers off and throw them into the woods, like crying and screaming. And now I'm in my socks, and I'm like, now I got to go find my sneakers in the fucking woods. And like that's how like mad like we get. And I had to go walk into the through the grass into the trees and like find my fucking like Nike running sneakers in the mud and still not eat, and then just like go to sleep, you know. Or sometimes we play these squat shows that was so bad that Walter or Alex used to play sick. They would be like, "Oh man, I don't think I could do it tonight. I'm sick." And it's like, well, you're sick because there's 15 people in there. There's
Yes.
there's more dogs than people, and there's fire inside. I don't want to play either. And those 15 people, 5 of them are spitting on me as we're playing. So it's like we've earned it.
Yeah, if you haven't cried, if you have not cried on a European squat tour as a lead singer in Europe,
Are
you're
you even the lead singer?
yeah, you haven't earned it. You haven't done what we've done. But that tour that you did in Europe is one of the most important tours I think a hardcore band ever did in terms of what kind of sprung out afterwards. It comes up on this podcast. Steve was there, obviously, in the London show. But
Yeah.
there's, uh, I just think looking at what kind of sprung up afterwards in Europe, kind of in your wake, it's very clear that that was a Youth of the Days tour too, prior, but
Yeah.
like very
definitely.
impactful.
I think, well, the thing that we always loved about Europe was the memory. Like the US would change year to year or every 2 years. But Europe, if you went and did it, they appreciated it and everybody came back. And then the next year they came back again. They came back again. We broke up right when the European hardcore piggy bank opened up for like Biohazard and AF and Sick of It All. We missed that merch train, but because we were already broken up. But because of what we did, I think in '89, and when I came back, well, actually, really, what happened was in '89, we kind of followed in the wake of youth, what Youth of Today did, and I mean, again, we just wanted to go to Europe. Like, I never thought I'd go to Europe ever. Like, I grew up in Jackson Heights in Queens. Like, you don't go to Europe, and so we got to do that, and when we were done with that, the next time we got approached by Mark MAD, and he was like, listen, I'm going to do this like real, and there's going to be a bigger van, and we're going to play real clubs, and you're going to make real money and all this stuff. So when we went back, it was like rock star status. We were like in a van you could stand up in. We were playing, there was back rooms, there was riders. We actually made money. It was a whole different world. So I came back, and literally like the day I landed in New York, I called Roger, I called Jimmy Gestapo, I called Pete Sick of It All, I called Freddie Madball, and I was just like, this is the dude we got to go with. I was like, he just did the Chromex right after us. And I came home with $5,000. That would never, I've never come home from anything with that much money at that point. The whole band wouldn't have made that much money at that point. I was like, I had $5,000. I was like $1 million. So I was just like, this guy is legit. He gets you paid. No one fucking scams you. He's a giant. He's like a freak of nature, and he stays with you.
He was in No Allegiance, right? Was that his band? He did
I
Destiny
don't know.
Records, maybe? Or maybe that's Destiny Tours. I'm confusing.
Mark Mad is mad booking, and he's just this. I remember meeting him in New York with this guy. We took his like bestie Stefan Rapuma was our roadie for the '89 tour. We met him in New York, and we just got along with him, and he was big and he had tattoos. We were like, you want to come on tour with us? And he was just like, yeah. There's like 8 of us in the van, and just giant German who we just met, but he was the best guy. And they were friends. And we would always be like looking up at Mark, he's like 6'5", like 270 pounds, and be like, how did you guys lose the war? Like, we're all so big. What happened? And that was like our thing, to just mess with Mark. And or we'd just be like, well, you're the one speaking English now, German power now. But we had a falling out through the years, but we have played shows since, and we're like good. But Mark was one of the first guys to sort of legitimize hardcore in like Europe and just treat it the way it needed to be treated. And then Sick of It All, we're super generous and reciprocated in '95. When we started doing Civ, they took us on tour before our record came out to open for them for like a 6 or 8 week tour in Europe with H2O. And just so we can kind of get seasoned and start playing again and be on the road and get used to it, because we were going to have a touring cycle come up. But it was strictly because we introduced them to Mark and that whole thing, and that just led them on their whole path of killing in Europe for decades. So it was a cool way to like get back into it. But I never really thought about the gaps being really so small when you think about it, like these 2 or 3 year gaps between doing things, but they seem like a lifetime. But I always try to like I feel like I try to get out, or like I'm like, all right, I'm done, I'm out. And then even like through COVID, like we didn't play for like a couple of years in COVID, and I was like, I think we're done. And then it just pulls you back in.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely because it's not just music, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a lifestyle, in the sense it's like it's our culture, it's our religion, it's even if you might not go to shows for a long time, there's still like when you go back, you're there. You know, you might not
Yeah.
perform on stage for a long time, but when you get up there again, you're like, oh yeah, this is what I meant to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, the Bon Jovi, the mistress calls me back into her spotlight again. That's real. You're just like that. Yeah, that's the thing. It's having a good performance is better than a lot of things. Like that kind of like you're in the matrix. I watch videos sometimes, like somebody will send me, I can't watch a performance like a whole thing, but like Instagram will give you that clip of like a song or like something. I can do about 10 seconds of watching myself. And I there's like a few from like California when we played that garden amp, and it's like it's almost like a force field around you. Like you're in the matrix. Like it's so fast and so crazy, but for you, it's so slow. You're like on a different thing. You see every fist like going in front of your face or foot flying past your face. And just, there's just this one video of like this chaos of everybody running across the stage. And I'm like walking through it like that and like somehow not getting hit. And I'm just like, that's just a magical sort of like weird thing that happens where you're just like, I think you have to believe it, where you're
Mhm.
just like, I'm good. I'm not gonna, no one's. I'm just gonna get to the front and sing, and everything's gonna just happen around me, and it's fine.
We have the heaviest piece of gear to carry, which is our egos. Because if we stop believing we can fly for a
Yeah.
second, that show crashes to the ground.
Yes. That's the thing too. Like people, like when things are not going your way, and like people would be like, "Oh man, you're so into it," and you're so, and I'm like, "Dude, I'm into it, but I'm really thinking, why is that guy not having a good time? That's a cool t-shirt. What am I going to eat later? Like my toe hurts. You know what I mean? There's 100 things going on in my head, and but it's muscle memory, and you're selling the performance and the show, and you're in the show, and you are the show. But then you're like thinking, all right, next song I'm going to do this or do that because I want to direct this in a different way. So no, that's the thing. It's like I try not to like think about it in terms of like, I mean, obviously we have huge egos or we wouldn't like do these things, but it's like keeping that in check. Excuse me, keeping that in check and having a sense of humility and thankfulness for being able to do it too. It's like I was talking to my wife about it like last night. We just some like older family member like drama stuff going on, and I'm just like they have all these like problems that they create. They're just because they're just like bored and they haven't had any sort of like interesting existence. And we've been so fortunate to have like really, I feel really interesting existence. I was like, I'm not Tom Cruise or something, but had a good life, had a good life doing cool shit. So it's just like, I try not to sweat the small stuff,
Yeah.
because of it.
And Steve Aoki doesn't have a Top Gun tramp stamp.
No, he doesn't. It's actually, it's even weirder place than that. It's like mid spine.
It's definitely I definitely should not use that term tramp stamp either, so I apologize for that. But also, you're right, it is a little
I think
higher.
tramp stamp I think is in like the dictionary. I think you can
Okay,
use it.
okay,
No
good.
one
Well,
thinks they're really tramps.
yeah, that's true. It's not gender specific, but you're right. It is. I did meet him at Coachella, and that was the first thing I asked him years ago.
We were just, me and my wife were just at his house last week in Vegas. He invited us over, and I only met Steve through Instagram because someone was like, I think Lisk or somebody told me that he's a GB guy, and I looked at his Instagram and he had a neck face mural in his playroom, and I love neck face as an artist. And I DM'd him. I said, dude, we don't know each other, but I'm so fucking jealous of that neck face mural. And he was like, dude, I got a GB tattoo. And I was like, okay, I didn't know that, but that's awesome. And I love that. And what the fuck? How do you have that mural? So we would chop it up, and then we wound up playing a show for him for his clothing line, a private event at my friend Casey's storefront in like Melrose or something. And I was like, hey, we're playing punk rock only if you want to, come out. And he's like, I have a show in San Francisco, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, we go back and forth with like and nerd out with some art stuff sometimes. And he's much more contemporary and much heavier collector than me, but we do have some common threads. So he was like, come over to the house when I show you the, collection and stuff. So we were like, sure. So me and my wife went over. I jumped off his thing into the foam pit. I blew the back of my pants out. And I didn't know I blew the back of my pants out. I had these like 50-year-old fucking Dickies on, and I jumped off this thing. He just said, he's like, you just jump in, And I was like, I want him to hold my nose for some reason. He's like, people do hold their nose. And so I held my penis and my nose for some reason, and I jumped into his foam pit. But I landed kind of hard, and like my knees came up, and I blew my ass out. And I didn't know. And then we had a split, and we were there for like 2 hours. Super gracious host. It was really fun hanging out with him. And me and my wife split, and we were meeting our friends to go see the Dead thing at the Dome, because I just wanted to see the Dome, and like day of tickets were cheap. So we went, and I'm walking around like didn't even know, like blown out, like from my balls to my top of my ass crack is ripped and my Dickies. And we walk all the way up to the top of the Dome, and I sit down, and I'm just like cock and balls on the seat. And I'm just like,
you're freeballing?
yeah, always. So I'm just like, what the fuck? And like, I look over and she's like, what? I'm like, yo, my balls are on the seat right now. And she's like, what? I'm like, I think I blew my pants out at Steve's house. and then we got in a little bit late, and there's like an hour long, and then there's an intermission. So we lasted like a half hour, and we were like, we're good. Cause it was trippy and stuff, but I'm not like a deadhead or anything. And John Mayer does like a weird tongue thing when he sings, and it was like on this huge screen. It was like kind of aggravating me. So we split to go eat dinner. But yeah, we walk out, and she's like, looks at my ass, and she's like, "Oh my god!" I had a Taylor Swift long sleeve, so I put that around my waist as like a bum flap, and yeah, we went and changed my pants and went to dinner. But I walked around Vegas for like, I don't know, 2 hours with my pants ripped. So
You probably weren't the most fucked up looking person at that
no,
Dead show.
you know what? That was the Dead show was the trip, but the outfit of choice in Vegas is thong and swim top and like a mesh or like net, like wearing like a fishing net over your ass, and just nudity is totally fine.
That's what I wore the whole
I
time
didn't
we were
dress
down there.
appropriately.
No,
I,
not at all.
I
And if you
tried to
did,
again.
and that's like the straight edge ultimate test. If you do not break edge having to sit through a Grateful Dead show at the Sphere in Las Vegas, you are the oath that keeps us all free.
I seriously was, I was trying so hard to just kind of enjoy it and like do it. But my problem is I look around, and I get so annoyed by the smallest thing. And I was just looking around, and I'm like, sit the fuck down. Like, like an old hippie dude trying to play air guitar, but he's like playing it bad, or he's playing air guitar and air drums at the same time. And I'm like, pick one. You're not even in time. Like, just what are you doing? And my wife's like, just don't look around, just enjoy. I'm like, I can't. I got to annoy myself somehow. But we did it. But I mean, the other guys, that's because my wife just said that's because you're straight edge. You can't just ignore things. You just gotta be annoyed. But Luke and Walter, they were there, and they definitely had a different experience.
Yeah,
I'm sure they were.
yeah, they're more plugged into the party vibe of the.
They were fine. They had a good time. Yeah.
And also the other thing about the Grateful Dead is the music kind of sucks. Like as like I tried to like it.
They got hits. They got hits, but it's I'm cleaning the house, and like a Dead song comes on, great. But or like doing the dishes, great. But sitting there watching, I can't sit that long. I'm not good at I'm not good at sitting. I'm not good at like relaxing. I have to, my thing is I have to exhaust myself every day to like go to sleep. And, and that's how I function. I just like, I'm not good at sitting. Just,
It's interesting in a band too, because like you brought up like Walter and Luke kind of being more tuned into the party vibe of that Dead show, and
yeah,
there's like now I'm going to do it. There's a distance that kind of develops, it
nice.
seems, between you guys. But looking at and when Gorilla Biscuits breaks up, looking at that kind of immediate Moondog kind of period, like obviously there's sonically there's a huge gap between Quicksand and Gorilla Biscuits, but Moondog's kind of a crossover. Were you not wanting to be involved, or was that not on the table, or was it?
It was like, for me, even, I didn't even want to do the Civ stuff. I was like, GB was my band, good run. I had offers to do other stuff. People, um, I think one of the dudes from Helmet hit me up after
Whoa, that would have been
GB,
so sick.
and PD Hines from Murphy's Law. They were gonna like do something, and I just, that's not my shit. Like, doesn't mean like I don't consider myself a musician, and I don't take it myself seriously as a singer. Even like, I know I can, I can sing a song, but I'm not like, oh, I'm so sick, let's do this project. I have songs, like my own songs written, I just acoustic guitar, and I have them like on my phone and stuff, but I don't need to do too much of it. Like with the second Civ record, like I feel like I really got to like write all the lyrics and like express myself and write stories, and I was really enjoyed that process of recording. That probably should have been like the fifth Civ record, but me and Charlie were just like, we're going for it, like fucking writing pop hits, and like that's where we were, and I love that record. But I just don't, I wasn't into doing like any other projects. It was just like, I'm I did a podcast with Norm from Texas is the Reason, and he's like, to say that you're consistent is an understatement. And I said, I'll take that as a compliment. I was like, same shop for 30 years, like, still doing GB stuff. Like, I'm happy with my station and who I am in the world. So like, I'm not looking to change it. If it happens naturally, like, and I'll do other things. I like projects. I like doing other shit. But like right now, like I'm into, as stupid as it sounds, like I'm really into cutting firewood. I got my grandfather's axe. I cleaned it up. I sharpened it. Like, that's an enjoyable hour for me. I'm into making fires. I'm into planting trees. Like, I'm into that, like, kind of outdoor shit. Love swimming. You know what I mean? Like, that's me and the kids doing that shit upstate. Like, I'm into that. I'm into cleaning my backyard in the city and like pruning a peach tree. So like, there's different things as you get older that you turn into like an old guinea, and you just want to fuck with your fig tree. But projects, like, my life is, and it's also, the thing is too, when you have another artistic outlet that your ego is satisfied. I don't need to try to hustle to find something else. So every day I get to sell and give away artwork to people in the form of tattooing or painting. So my ego is pretty straight, and I don't need to do any of the music stuff. Oh yeah, fine. Got a good haircut.
I find it always interesting the neurodiversity that makes up a band, like just how the different types of personalities. And I love Walter like immensely. He's one of my favorite human beings in the whole world. I feel like the two of you have very different
Oh yeah,
approaches to life.
it's fire. It's fire and water. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the older we get, the more um, connected, but also distant we get. But we're like, it's like siblings, where we drive each other crazy, but we also love each other like brothers. So, and we understand each other, I think, we don't talk about it that much, but it's on a deeper level than other people understand. We can read each other's just body language and facial expressions. But the thing that the you know the commonality and the bond there is the band and the legacy and doing what's best for it. And it's a hard it's a hard line to walk sometimes because he's still on this mission, I think, musically with all the projects. And even though he's got this great legacy and this huge bank of songs and projects and things that he's done, he's still hunting for stuff. And that's great, but it might be frustrating, but he's very quiet and stoic about it. So when we're together and we're touring, it's very surface and of the day and of the show and of it's very surface stuff. It's like, that was awesome. Dinner was great. Food was great. Cool. See you later. Or like, we even travel sometimes if it's like, we all travel separately and then we just meet up somewhere, because we're all, we have our own things going on. So it's not like, let's get in the van and do this and that, and that drives me crazy. That used to drive me crazy when we go on tour. Even recently, we went to like South America and I was busy. I was working kids and stuff. And then I wind up in Argentina like 3 days before the fucking first show. And I'm like, we're not playing till when? And I'm like, why the fuck am I in Argentina? Like, I thought we were like, so we could chill. And it's like, I can't chill. I don't want to fucking chill. Like, what the fuck? I went and worked at a tattoo shop and for like a whole day just to like occupy my mind. But yeah, he's made, I mean, when we were like 17 or 18, I was working in a health food store and he was working at a different one down the road. And he lasted like a couple of days. And he was like, you know what? I'm never going to work again. And we were like, oh, really? Good luck. And I'm just like, that's all I'm going to do is I'm going to, work and do this thing. And he was just like, yeah, I'm just not into it. And he literally, that was it. His mom was super understanding of who he was when he was a kid. And I remember when we got our apartment, I was like, we got our first apartment together, and I was like, you got to get a job, man. Like, it was only like $500 a month or something. And he's like, no, I talked to my mom, and she was like, I said, how much do you think I cost you a month? And she was like, oh, like $400 or something. And he was like, okay, so since you're paying that out already, what do you say you give me that? I'll move out. And his mom's name was Deb. And Deb was like, all right, yeah, I could see that. And I was like, what? Like, that work? I was just jealous. I was just like, oh, got it. My parents were like, see ya.
Yeah.
But we're completely different people. And his that's really it. But it's, we're all fucking wacky and nuts, and that's how we get along. I mean, you look around, just even the way like we look, like on stage, it makes no sense. There's no band vibe. Charlie's dressed like he's on a tropical vacation. Arthur dresses like a fucking mortician. Luke's got no clothes on. Walter, it's like in some tie-dye shit or whatever. And I got a shirt that says daddy on it because I think it's funny. But I just it doesn't have to make sense. It's just I don't know. I always thought about that with bands, like when people try to do like their power band, like they get like five sick players and they're like, we're gonna make this sick band, and the band sucks. And then you get like five guys who are kind of shitty and they write great songs and they have a great vibe. It's like, that's a band. It's not about, power, power or like a bunch of players. It's just what works.
There's got to be that real chemistry,
Yeah.
right? And there's always that kind of like dynamic, like a Mick and Keith thing with someone who's got their head in the clouds and someone who's like the practicalist that,
Yeah.
and I say that with the person with my head in the clouds in my band that,
Yeah.
but you kind of need that a little bit, I guess, because you need that delusion.
Well,
reality.
I think there's I think I'm totally cool being the practical guy as long as I don't get Monday morning quarterbacked. And that does happen. And I used to just be like, fuck off, like then you do it. And now I'm just like, hey, this is the best, case scenario. So I did. But yeah, like I I have to, it's hard for me because of the way I am. It's hard for me sometimes with like the band or with, Wally, where, he just rolls. And that's his thing is at least this is how I feel. I don't want to speak for him, but he doesn't want stress. He doesn't want to be stressed. He doesn't want to be put out. He just wants to have like good vibes and like that's it. And if he shows up to a show without a guitar, he'll figure it out. I would
Like
used to get
Vegas.
about it. Like every show. He just, yeah. He just like I don't know, the last year, he's just decided that traveling with a guitar is hectic. So it's so he's not going to do it. And Luke's like, what the fuck is this shit? And I'm just like, I don't know. Ask you work it out. He's got in his head that he doesn't want to carry a guitar. So that's what he's gonna do. You know what I mean? And and again, it comes from punk rock or hardcore. Like, I'm not trying to be the boss of nobody. I'm like, I got enough shit I gotta take care of. Like, we'll figure it out, you know? Where Arthur wants to have his bass, talk about his bass, talk about how his bass feels, how the flight was for his bass, like what his bass is wearing, and he wants his bass, and that's it. And he's gonna change the strings. He's gonna clean it up. He's excited. He's a player. He's a musician. He's not gonna jump around because he wants to play well. He's a musician, and that's who he is. And that's, everybody's just fucking weirdos, and we're all, I mean, shit, I wouldn't want to have to deal with me at all. I get fucking mad about everything in 2 seconds and say the nastiest thing back that I can, and I can't control it, and like sometimes my wife and she's like, yo, you gotta fucking chill out. And I'm just like, fuck him or fuck that. And she's just like, they, they didn't even say anything, but I just can't. I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm an asshole to deal with, especially when it comes to like band shit or like merch or like guarantees or like barricades, or I will die on every one of those fucking hills. I will fall on that sword every time. I cannot learn my lesson and I'm not smart enough to change. I just fuck it. I'm just going. And these guys have to deal with me. You know what I mean? And I know that. And so I do try. I try now to just, we've been lucky to have this run for so long. And I'm just like, I have to try to just enjoy it and make it enjoyable for everybody. So we have like a good experience. And it's also hard to prioritize, like we were saying, like, Walter doing his projects and stuff and head in the clouds. It's not a good mix because it's like, hey, are you free to do this? Or Luke, are you free to do this? And then it's like, yeah, yeah. And then I'll be the practical one and try to work something out with a booking agent. And it's like, and then my booking agent's smart enough to say, are you sure? And I'll say, I think so. Let me check. I'll double check. And then he'll say, okay, are we 100%? And I go, let me check again. And then I call him back and say, we're not good. And he's like, great. Okay, let's start again. You know what I mean? And it's, but you can't, you can't fight City Hall with that because it's like, they ultimately don't give a shit. So you can't get mad because the guys you're getting mad at don't care. So, and I'm the same way. If something they're mad at me about, I'm just like, I don't fucking care. I don't care you're mad. I don't care that I was wrong. I don't care that it didn't work out. I don't care because we come from.
And I say this as someone who's worked on the other side, trying to do a Moondog reissue with Walter years ago. It certainly it certainly isn't to his benefit. And I think if you look, obviously he's put out an incredible breadth of music,
Yeah.
that is awesome, but very much like Lou Barlow versus Jay Mascis and Dinosaur Jr., because he wasn't focused on the one thing in the same
Yeah.
way. Like, you guys put out one of the most important hardcore, one of the most important independent records ever in Start Today. And I think it's the parallel to Operation Ivy at that point is interesting because they're the same way. They put out this record that's unbelievably influential and changes everything. And then the alternative music boom is just around the corner, but you guys are kind of, I know you break up in 92, but like not really able to kind of like take advantage of it. Like it's interesting to think if Gorilla
Yeah.
Biscuits had put out that record in between what would wind up being Civ and
Yeah.
Start Today at that moment, what would have happened? Because it's almost like you can see how the news story could have pitched as the complete opposite and the answer to grunge at that time.
Mhm.
And it's a rise of alternative media and all that kind of shit too.
There's definitely, there's definitely that thing where a lot of people, but again, like when you're in it, you can't see it, you can't tell what's going on. It's easier on the outside. And like, I'll get questions like, what were you thinking when you were, I was like, I wasn't fucking thinking anything. I was thinking it's 2 a.m. I've just sung fucking, whatever, time flies for the 100th time. And these guys are fucking not paying attention. They just go sing it again. I just want to fucking go to sleep. Like I don't. There was no like, oh, this is gonna change lives. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this is fucking. I don't know. So you're in it, but the we people said like that. Set Your Goals was so well received with hardcore because it was like the second GB record to them. And I didn't think of that or feel that way at all. But I mean, of course it was, with the writing and the singing and the musicianship and the people. So I, in my mind, it was like definitely a separate thing, but it really isn't. But if there was a record in between there, what could have, would have, should have, it might have been awesome. It might have been, we might have been like on a, Descendants kind of pedestal after like 3 years. But who knows if the records would have been the same, if the chemistry would have been the same, if the writing would have been the same, if it would have been as well received. It's like Start Today could, you could say that's like in like a microcosm of hardcore, that's lightning in a bottle. So it's like, I don't know if you can recreate that.
Well, but like, because Set Your Goals is a fucking amazing record. And I like the second Civ record too. And I think looking at them now in retrospect, they all make sense. Was there ever any
Yeah.
temptation to be like, because it's pretty much largely the same group of people, like to be like, okay, well, let's just call it Gorilla Biscuits again and take advantage of what we've already done in terms of building this to this point.
There wasn't I didn't want to we didn't want to do GB again because of like the legacy stuff. And we didn't want to do I didn't even want to call it Civ 100. I mean, that was brutal. And this is very us. Okay, you ready? So the hang on a sec. Hey babe,
Yeah,
is something burning? Is something on the oven on?
I put the oven
Oh,
on.
okay, that's what it is. I'm having like my big nose is like smelling something, and I'm like, what's happening right now?
All
I
these
smell.
discussions happen in my house, so I definitely can relate.
So so I get talked into doing the 2 songs, right? And there's a whole thing going on behind my back, like with management, record company, the band being kind of put together. And I'm just working. I'm just like, I don't know. But Walter's like confident he can like talk me into it. And and my ego is like, okay, be cool to sing a song that's not just a hardcore song, and it's whatever, it can be cool. So I'm like, listen, we got to come up with another name. We can't call it Civ. Like, I'm not Cher or fucking Madonna. My ego is not that. You know what I mean? My ego is an ego, but it's not that ego. So they're like, no, everybody will know. It's think of it like Danzig. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's fucking sucks too. Like, I don't think it's cool either. Like, that's not selling me. So I was just like, no, I really don't want to do it. And they're like, kind of look at him, and I think it was like Charlie or Sammy or somebody, some behind the scenes people, and they're like looking at each other, and they're like, and I'm like, what? And he's like, it's kind of too late. And I'm like, why? He's like, Revelation made shirts already. And I was like, you made Civ shirts. And they're like, yeah, like SSD font. They sucked. They were like bronze gold, like on like black tees. They weren't even good tees. So it's just like, so that's it. It's called Civ. And there's just like just a couple songs, like it's okay, you know. And I was like, oh, and then it was I should have said, you know, no, but it was too late. And I didn't think it was gonna be a record either, you know. So even I mean the album artwork I hated the it's just it was all once you're in that machine and you're like, you know, you're sitting in an art department with somebody and it's like this color's testing well and this is this and I'm just like, oh fucking kill me. I actually left the meeting when we before we signed, we were gonna sign to a major and I was like, no fucking way, you know, like I'm not doing this. And we had a meeting at an Italian restaurant with Doc McGee. They like brought in the big guns to sell us. And Doc's like, you know, guys, money, money isn't everything. And I was like, okay, like I'll, you know, like midway through the dinner and the conversation, he's like, money isn't everything. So I was just like, okay, cool. Like, and he goes, it's the only fucking thing. He's like, it's everything. We're gonna make so much fucking money on this record. And I had one of those giant like cell phones that looked like a Great Pyramid, you know, like with their flip phone. And I went outside, excused myself from the table, and I went outside and I was literally like crying on the street, like, what am I doing? I'm like, all the shit we were taught and learned and like talked about, I'm just completely selling out right now. Like, and it was like, and then but then you're also like, okay, I'm 25. I got a shot. You know what I mean? Like, take a shot. Are you can you if this you have a better chance of winning like the lottery than getting signed to a major. People win lottery every day. Getting signed to a major and having a 2 record deal on Atlantic and having a everybody everybody sucking your dick about the video that we paid for that video ourselves with Marcus Sagan, me, Walter, and Marcos, and then they took it and color corrected it and put money into it. We spent like $5,000 each on it to make it, which they had to talk me into that too. I was like, I don't need to make a fucking video for a song, 7-inch. Fucking, you guys crazy? Like that's all the money I had, you know. I was just like, you guys are nuts, but we did it, and it worked out in a way. But you know, we were lucky to ride that. We got to do kind of the best of both worlds, where the credibility wasn't ruined. We kept it real enough with the live shows and our ethos and who we are as people, and we got to cross over into that world a little bit. But that world, yeah, you can fame, you can keep that shit. Without the money, you can keep that shit, because I've been there without the money and it fucking is the worst. I don't even know if it's worth it with the money. Like, you can't go out of your house and you're in a SUV with security and you can't go shopping, or you can't take your kids for a walk, or you can't, you know, go anywhere without, you know. I think we feel it at like the hardcore shows and stuff a little bit, but real fame, like, you can keep that shit.
Oh yeah. You give me $200,000 a year, I'm walking away. You'll never see me do anything publicly again. I'm fine. I don't care. And because I like you're saying, I had my ego filled. I've done it. And like it's never enough with the money. Like I see it with friends of mine who are very successful, and I'm like, why would you do this? Like you could just not do this and chill somewhere, or like, not to beat up on him, but Steve Aoki, when he posted that picture of Start Today that he had slabbed in the
Yeah.
plastic, and it's just like the hate on his feed, like all these dudes being like "fuck you," and it's like, why is this dude doing like like if that's me, even though I was gonna slap that record, how the fuck I'd tell people about it? I'd be like, nah, I'm not gonna. This is my thing. I don't need to. I'm not making any money off telling people about that. Maybe he is. Maybe he's getting kickbacks on people slabbing Rev records now, but
That's just like a thing, his new thing. I mean, I think Steve's just a dude that I think when you're that level, you are Teflon. Nothing anyone says can bother you. Everything people say about me bothers me. So he just does his hustle. He does what he does.
But you and I, and I'm not beat up Steve. I mean everyone when I say this.
Oh no, totally. Yeah.
You and I both know that's not true. No matter how big you get, no matter how many people are at that show, you still see that person giving you the finger or that one person at the back
I
walking
think when
out.
it's, I think when it's, I think for me, in person or online is the same thing. But I think when those people are at that level, like, you know what I mean? Like, did the Kardashians read negative things on Instagram and get upset? I don't think they can anymore.
No, I think they've monetized it. I think they're different though, right? Because their whole industry is being that personality. But if you're like someone, I don't know. You know what? I should
No,
next
no,
time I
don't.
see him, I'm not going to ask to see his tattoo. I'm going to ask him about this deep psychological question.
I think it's, but it's also like, okay, you can hate, hate and say fuck you and call me all these names, but I'm still worth, whatever, $100 million. So suck it. I
But
don't
then it's
care.
never enough, right? Like that's the thing. Like if
Right.
I
What's the number? What's the
yeah,
number?
what's the number
Yeah.
for me to walk away from this? $200,000 a year. I think I can make a pretty. I could give my kids a vacation every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could pay off everything, universities and stuff. Like I'm good. That's all I
Yeah.
need.
I think it's, well, I was talking to one of my customers about it because he's a young dude, he's hungry and he's smart. And he's he was like, what's the number? And I said, I don't know. I said, I don't really need too much of a number. Like if everything's paid off and I'm covered, like yeah, it doesn't have to be huge, just a nest egg. And he's just like, I don't know, man, I'm thinking like 100 million. I'm just good for you. I'm like, yeah. And he's just like, yeah, fuck it. He's like, he just married, he just got married, and his wife just became a doctor. And he's like, in his job, he's like, we'll be at like $500,000 a year in a couple of years. And he's like, but is that enough? And I said, I know. I said, in New York, and at this time, it's like to function at like a certain level, you need to be at $300,000 a year just to like be normal, and, or at least New York normal, Manhattan normal. And he's in Long Island, but he's just like, yeah, I want to be like, I want all that shit. Why not? And I'm like, yeah, man, if that's where you want to be, and that's the number and you can do it, and you're powerful. That was the thing we were talking about. Like people will say like, oh, enjoy, being young, or enjoy your youth and do this and do that. And I'm just like, I can look back at it and it's like, no, man, you got to grind when you're young. You don't want to be grinding in your 50s. You want to be grinding when you're in your 20s and 30s and you're powerful. Have fun in your 50s. Like that would be my advice to somebody like younger, like work now, figure out alternate streams of income, and like a way to like make your life awesome without breaking your fucking ass if you can. It's almost impossible, but try it while you're young, while you still got the energy.
Yeah, especially because it goes by so quickly. Time
Yeah.
flies.
No, someone said it, but time flies. It's true.
You mentioned, the money train that opens up in Europe, and there's certainly a point where there's a money train around your band that maybe you're not benefiting from, like bootlegs start coming out, like a lot of bootleg
Yes.
merch and things like that. Like, and then sort of this legend of this band is kind of building. And like, I get into this stuff around 94, 95. So like, Set Your Goals comes out, and I'm like right there, ready for it. But there's almost like the canonization of Gorilla Biscuits has already happened. Like they were already considered uh, like sort of this deity level to some kids. I had a friend who used to carry around this Revelation All Ages book like it was the Bible, and just like read through these interviews with these people. And it was like, it's interesting now because it is such a short temporal period of time. And I guess now we're also so much more privy to the inner workings of the people that we're interested in, and we see
Yes.
them, Kardashians, whatnot. But at this point, it was all just stuff you piece together. Like, oh, is this guy still
There's
Edge? Is this person
there's
like,
no there is no mystery anymore. There was mystery then.
yeah. And I think the mystery, what we filled in that gap was sort of just legend
Yeah.
and building people up. Were you perceiving that as Civ is happening, that there's already sort of this like Start Today's become something?
No, I was having, sometimes it was the opposite effect because we'd be doing like, again, it's the one out of 1,000 theory where, you know, um we're up there and I'm doing the mashed potatoes singing start today and someone singing set you goals and someone screams, start today or new direction. And I'm just, you appreciate it, but you're also like, hey man, different band, wrong, wrong guys, and it's also like you also sometimes would feel like, yeah, I wish I was singing that one too,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
but that was taken away from me, so we're doing this now, because sometimes you're just an accidental tourist in your own life where you're just like, I'm up there doing it and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm here. And you can't think too hard on it. Sometimes you just have to say yes. My life has always been better by just saying yes to things and at the right time. And it's something that I try to like live by, and also the power of no. I think with GB, I survive on the power of no. I get offered stuff and I go, nah, I'm good. And people are like, what do you mean you're good? And I'm like, I don't want to do that. They're like, why? Because I don't want to. I don't have to. I'm good. Like that's it. And they're just so infuriated by it. And then if it's usually around money, you know, and it's like, here's the number. We're adults. We have children. We're paying for colleges. And I'm don't have to explain myself why. When you tell me a ticket is $30 and it's 1,000 cap and it sells out, why, you offered me eight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's fucking math. But I think the I didn't realize that was happening during the Civ stuff because I was so in that world, the Civ world, and we were with the majors and like the regular bands, and we were like a rock band kind of, to a certain degree. So the hardcore thing was there, and I never ever denied that beginning because I love that beginning and that's who I am. And I always considered Civ a hardcore band too. It was more, poppy, and we crossed over more, but um not in a metal way, like in a pop way or like a rock way. But I was so into what we were kind of doing. And then eventually I even got like caught up, I got caught up in it where it was just like it became normal. The touring cycles, the who we were meeting, who we were hanging out with, going out, dinners, or it just became part of like our existence. It wasn't like hardcore anymore. We were just in this like music scene.
It's almost though proto, just pre, and I guess a little bit overlapping with that meet me in the bathroom era of New York becoming the hotspot for music again internationally, or like at least the hipsterification, I guess, of Brooklyn is just around the corner.
Yeah, I mean, we were, but again, see, that the thing too is you're like in this bubble and you can't be omnipresent. So it's like you're in your own bubble and you're just trying to survive and mentally stay, um, capable. And when you find yourself in Germany in February and on tour and you haven't seen the sun in 3 weeks and eating cauliflower from a road stand with salt on it. You know what I mean? It's like that's that like is an actual event, where I steamed a head of broccoli with salt and sat at 3 in the morning with the bus driver, like eating at the back table, like tears in my eyes. But it all looks better, from the audience to the stage, not the
Yes.
backstage. It kind of
Yeah.
like, but I don't know. I mean, GB, I really don't think I understood the impact until 2005 when we played CBs because like they called me up and I said, I don't think it's going to happen, but so Walter and I hadn't talked in forever. I was working and he was doing his thing. And so I called him and I just said, hey, like CBGB's literally called me. Like the club called and they said they're going under unless they could fight this lawsuit. I think it's bullshit. It's probably a money grab, but they gave us our existence. The club gave us our existence. If we don't do it and they close, I'm going to feel bad about myself and the band. If we do it and they stay open, we'll be heroes. If we do it and they close, at least we tried. And he was just like, yeah, okay, tell him we'll do it. And I said, okay. So then I called Luke and Alex and Arthur, and we said it has to be a Sunday matinee in the summer, and we worked it out. And we were practicing like the night before, and someone called me. We were all in my car, we were all in my truck, and leaving practice, and somebody called me, and they were like, "There's a line around the block at CB's." And I was like, and it was like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock on like Saturday night. And I was like, what do you mean? Like there's a show? And they were like, no, for tomorrow. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, they're lined up for the GB show tomorrow. And because there was no pre-sale or anything. It was just like, you had to be there. So we drove by and we were like, what the fuck? And it like went down Bowery and like turned the corner. And we were like, then we've got like, oh shit. Like we better be good tomorrow. Like it's just fuck. Like this is serious, because we were never known as like a practiced or live band at all.
Yeah.
But after it was a disaster. In my mind, our legacy is first song, Walter breaks a string, and then we stand there going, does anyone have a string? Does anyone have a string? Does anyone have a guitar? So or like as I'm talking, it's just like looks like bing bong, bing bong, bing bong, bing dong, and then it's like just noise. Like
I hate that so much when I'm talking and they're doing that.
there's no professionalism now.
Oh,
It's like, but that's what happened when with like Quicksand and Civ and what Luke doing all his tours. Everybody became more professional, more seasoned in musicians, and we all became that made Gorilla Biscuits actually become good as a live band, like because we never were. It was no one gave a fuck. But then when we played CB's and there was people outside and they were like, you guys got to play. And I was like, I can't play. Like there's people outside. Like, and we walked the line and I was like, where are you from? And they're like, we came from Brazil. And I'm like, okay, you go up to the front. People show me passports. I'm like, you got to get in, you get in, you get in, you get in. And like, we physically walked and got people in. And then the guy was like, you guys got to go on. I said, dude, there's still a fucking 100 people outside. I know there's room in there. Like, you got to get him in. He's like, where are you? I said, don't worry about where I am. I was like, I could see the line. I was like, once everyone's inside, I'm coming in. I was like, I'm coming in the back door, but you're not, people came to see this and we're doing one show. So get him in. He's like, fuck. Like I said, I'm annoying. So we got everybody in, and then when I went through the back, and when people like say to you, like they'll say like, oh, it was electric in the air. Like this was the first time I felt it, where the anticipation and the vibe in that room was electric. It really was. Like you could feel it in your fingers. And by the time we were done, the ceiling was sweating as you want, and the stage is wet from the people in the room, not from water. And it made us go, okay, this is something we should look into more, and then when we did the 2006 tour, it was literally every show was just like the best show. It was the only thing that was weird about that was it, and I didn't know it was happening at times. So I wasn't playing, I was just tattooing, was the like you became a obstacle in like a gymnastics event where like people were like, I'm going to grab Siv's head and jump over his neck, or I'm going to use his face as a fulcrum to do a flying spin kick, or just punch him in the stomach as he's singing on the front, like slap him in the balls or grab his thighs really hard. So that was a tour of just slapping people in the face for me, and a dumping. I think we played like Richmond, and these dudes, we showed up and these guys, there was like 20 guys in like red shorts with bandanas, no shirts on, just like they looked like a gymnastics team. And they were warming up, like they were outside, and I was like, who the fuck are those guys? And they were like, those guys are gonna kill you. And I was like, great. And there was this one show, this dude kept jumping on putting his hands on my shoulders and pressing himself up while I'm singing. And we like look at me like over and over, pumped and a fan, and I appreciate it. But eventually it's like, yo, get the fuck off me. Like I'm trying to do something. So after like the second or third time, I had a wireless and I just dropped it and I grabbed him with those armpits and I picked him up like this, like complete just anger Hulk shit. Picked him up and then slammed him forward, threw my waist forward and just slammed him into the stage. Like almost not, and as hard as I could. And I picked my mic up and I was like, stop, and he was like almost knocked out. And he like literally crawled over to the side of the stage. And, it's like life lessons. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you're going to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back. And like, this is a hardcore show. I'm not a prop, and that would happen. I, I punched some kid one time. Walter smacked some dude. Like, or I had tape. My pants were ripped. I had tape on him. Some guy was like smacking me in the balls, like over and over, drunk. So I just open hand smacked him and like, hey man, like, hey, this is what we're gonna do now.
That's assault. Yeah.
Yeah. This is like, I'm not a cop caller, but we're definitely gonna smack each other back. I'm gonna smack you back. Yeah. Like, I don't care. But that tour was super exciting and fun and lucrative. And that tour actually made us a merch band too for the first time. We never really embraced that aspect of it. It was the first time I kind of took control of just designing stuff. And Equal Vision Merch now, the best in the business as far as I'm concerned with drop shipping and getting things done quick for me and understanding. My friend Bill Scoville works there, and he understands my language of design, and takes things that I chicken scratch sketches and makes them into like awesome shirts.
It's interesting because I think, like, to me, one of the first truly, there's always like the accidentally awesome hardcore shirt that comes out,
Yeah.
like the tie-dye Chromag shirt or something like that. But like, there's that purple GB long sleeve from the 90s
Yes, with the
that,
crazy in the back.
yeah, that I remember being like, just like, what the fuck is that shirt? And
Yeah.
and then I guess Lost and Found also did some wild bootlegs too for Battery and stuff. But like, really kind of like where design of hard,
Shows them and Lost and Found, like fuck those guys.
yeah,
Like,
but not cool. Like,
not cool. I went to one of those places and they were like, "Oh, we had a fire and all the records are lost." And I'm like, "You guys just are robbing everybody and you don't care." It's just like that attitude is just so, blasé about it. Like, "Oh yeah, we bootleg your stuff and keep the money. It's okay."
well, it's this entitlement that kind of happens in hardcore where it's like, oh, we're all equal, so I can take this because no one's supposed to make money on this. It's like, well, you're
I never
making money
thought
on
of,
this.
yeah, you're making it. No, we're totally supposed to make money
Someone's
on it.
making
Like,
money on this thing.
yeah,
Like it certainly isn't a socialism thing. You're not giving this shit away.
van ain't free. Yeah, no, I know. But Jordan from Revelation, after we did, I mean, it's sort of recent past, was when I did the BMX long sleeves. Steve Reddy was like, he's like, I saw those and he was like, what the fuck is he thinking? He's like, this is the worst shit I've ever seen. And Jordan, and he goes, and Steve's like, I was wrong. He's like, I don't question you anymore. He's like, those things were a monster. And he's just like, he's like, I just didn't get it. And he's like, you got it. So, but Jordan said, he's like, your merch is now the new record. And I said, huh, that's interesting. He's like, the merch is giving you a whole new life and like attention for the band, because there's no meaning music, but there's new stuff and it's interesting stuff. So people are like gravitating towards it. And I was like, I'll take that. It's nice. But again, this is like the ego feed where you're like, okay, I'm putting creative energy into something that wasn't there before. And it's breathing new life into it. And not all of them are home runs. And sometimes they're just like little, but even like we did like a shirt for Crossroads with the Hundreds for like a charity event. And like those were super well received. And it was just you know, it's just fun to kind of design things. But again, we're able to get away with doing whatever the fuck we want because nobody in the band makes sense together, and the band doesn't really make sense, but it works and we don't care. So if I do a shirt and it sucks and people hate it, I'm like, that's cool. I mean, people write stuff on like when I post shirts, like, this is the worst shirt I've ever seen. And I just laugh. I go, okay. You know what I mean? It's like, great. I was like, it's still going to be awesome. And we're still going to sell them and we're still going to make them. But thank you for your opinion. You know, sometimes I'll snap back. I'll pop shit. You know, like I'll be like, I just looked at your profile. You fucking dress like shit. You know? It's like, you don't know shit. And they're like, no, dude, I'm a fan. I just, and like, oh, you just want to fucking say some mean shit. Like, don't cop a plea now.
Well, like you're saying, Judge couldn't get away with this. Youth of the Day couldn't really get away with this. It's like because the band has such a playful side to it, and like the difference between the LP and the 7 inch is big enough that I think like Gorilla Biscuits is just this collection of individuals. Like that's what makes Gorilla Biscuits, and that's why it still works now. It's not bogged down in ideology or like a certain presentation of the band that's tied to a certain era. Like you're saying, there's no uniform to who these people in this band were back then,
Yeah.
even.
No, I mean, we were all like from the same scene, but we were definitely different, you know, people. And I think that still carries over. But I think as we get older, we get weirder and more, you know, and we get different, and we just, all those weird things about us just come out more. You know, the things that make us who we are just get amplified.
A lesson we didn't have to learn for ourselves because we were on a tour following your European tour in England was don't fuck with the bootleggers. We were
Oh
told
yeah, that
at
was
a
a good one.
yeah, we were told at a show. We were on tour with the Gallows when Gallows were popping off
I
huge.
love Dallas. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
Frank
that.
was the singer back then. It was like when they first blew up.
Yeah,
Wildest show I've been on, like bigger, crazier than the Foo Fighters energy or any of that stuff that we've done since. Like just like like the feverish, like got to get
yeah,
at
those fans are
someone.
like insane. Yeah,
It
like
was
it's like,
that. It was also like the media trying to get at him. Like it really, and he was keeping his head. He was tattooing the whole time in the hotel room.
that's awesome. I did
Yeah,
the same.
yeah, exactly. Like I think it was a way to kind of keep him grounded during that time because it was so crazy. But a couple shows there were bootleggers out front, and the plan that I think some people with them were like, well, let's go fuck with those bootleggers, and they're like, don't do it. GB did it, and it was
It
a
was
bad
actually
scene.
it was actually Sick of It All, and we were on tour with Sick of It All and Civ. Well, this was in the
This would have
90s.
been mid two
Yeah.
thousands.
No, yeah. Well, what happened was we were on tour with H2O and Sick of It All, and the year before, Mark MAD went outside and they were bootlegging right in front of the club, and allegedly someone who looked like Mark hit a bootlegger in the head with a giant mag light, and he wound up being injured slightly. And the next year when we went back, they were back out again. So Craig and Pete were like, yo, those bootleggers are outside. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Come on, kid. Let's go. And I think Smokey, a bass player for H2O, went out because he was always down for a little dust up. And Craig went out, maybe one of the other, maybe Dirty Matty or somebody. And they kind of gave him this is our shit. Let's have it. And they were like, oh, it's you guys again. Cool. Threw the van door open, and there was dudes with like black ski masks on and baseball bats. And it was like, you fucked one of our dudes up. They were like organized Manchester guys. And
Gangster.
they were, they were gangsters, Manchester Mafia guys. And they were like, you fucked one of our dudes up last year. Now this is happening. So for some reason, Toby had like a mayonnaise jar or some shit for some stupid reason, and he like threw it at somebody. And Smokey had picked some big pipe up off the street and swung it and hit Craig. Like it's like all like this. It was like slapstick, and then they ran back in the club. And Pete, we were upstairs. The dressing room was upstairs, and it was just like uh they were seats like beef, we got beef, but like laughing nervously. So I thought like they were kidding, and they're like, we got beef outside. So I ran down with Pete and Toby and the roadies, like probably like 6 or 7 of us ran outside, but now it had moved into like the alley. And I ran through the back alley door and like bottle like just whizzed past my head. And we were like, what the fuck is like happening? And we see Smokey, and Smokey's got a Smokey's got a garbage can lid and a stick. And he's like it was like straight like Viking shit. And he's like, "Come on, you motherfuckers!" And he's breaking bottles with this. And these guys are in the alley just throwing bottles at him. And he's breaking them and like swinging. But now people are like running at us from like the crowd, like from outside the line, because all this shit's going on. So like we're like pushing and fighting with people. We don't know who's who. Somebody has a Tom stand, and they fucking smashed this dude with a Tom stand, one of the roadies. And this girl's like, "What are you doing?" It was like a guy and his girlfriend, but he was like running at us. So like we were like, throwing punches at people. We get inside and no one got hurt. And it was just kind of funny. And then but as they're driving away, we're in the alley before we go upstairs, and they're driving away, and the guy's in the van. The guy leans out the van with a mask on, and he goes, because we were staying there, we were playing 2 nights at this, like, I don't know if it was at the Astoria or one of those places, and he goes, "You'll get no sleep tonight." And we were staying in the club, and I was like, oh fuck. So we literally barricaded the alleyway. We like parked a van in the alleyway and like Mark MAD, and we cut barbed wire from like another thing and put it like in an entrance. Like we didn't know what was gonna happen. Because like again, we got in a fucking fight with these Manchester dudes, and there was only like a handful of us. Oh, and they threw a keg.
Oh my
They threw a,
God.
they threw a keg into the bus window and broke the window, and they cut their hand on the case. There was blood all over the side of the bus, and there was a broken side window. We got into the first GB tour that we had, the bus tour in 2006. We had people on that were never on tour before. So we were like, "Listen, here's your key, wear it around your neck on the lanyard. You got to lock the bus, lock the bus, lock the fucking bus." Second show, I think we were like in Boston or something. I'm in the back, settling up with a road manager, and I hear like screaming from the front. Now, it sounds like a girl screaming, but my friend was on Elmo, and he has a very high pitched voice. And so I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" So like I go out, and there's just 3 guys on the bus, like, and they're like fist fighting, like bar guys in the front lounge of the bus. So I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?" And like Elmo falls down the stairs, or Joe Murch was outside. Some guy was in the wheel while Elmo was holding a guy, and Arthur was wasted. And when Arthur's wasted, he doesn't look like much, but he'll go. And he's like holding onto the ceiling, and he's kicking down at this guy's face. Like he's kicking this guy in the face. It's almost like holding him, and the front windshield's broken. So I like kind of get calm. Like, the dude's this big fat guy standing there, no shirt on. Like he got my friend like hockey fought him, like pulled his shirt off. So he's got no shirt on. And I'm like, "What is happening? Why do you have no shirt on? Who broke the window? Get the fuck out of our." And the guy's like, "Fuck you." I said, "Dude, listen, I'm not going to talk anymore. You're in my, just like you're in my house." I said, "Either step off this bus and we'll talk, or I'm going to punch you in the fucking face. Like, get out of my bus. This is not a public fucking thing." So basically we get outside, and they were like, "We just like opened the door. We thought like you guys wanted to party." And like, "No one wants to party with you. We live here on this bus. Like, get off this fucking bus." But like, I was like, "Did everybody learn a lesson tonight? Lock the fucking bus." But that was the
Oh,
first time I ever got in a fight like on the bus. It was pretty good.
oh, that's amazing. Especially like in Europe too, where you don't know. It's not where you're from. Like we
Yeah.
got we got pulled over one time by these guys in Paris. We
Yeah, I
parked.
think it was,
They're
sorry.
like these 2 guys burst in the van, and they're like, "Search you. We're gonna search you. We're police." And
Yeah.
we're like, they got guns, and we're like, "Let me see your badge." They're like, they just point to the guns, like,
These are
"What the
badges.
fuck, dude?" And it's like, yeah, we don't know this country. They could have been cops. They could have been just trying to jack us. Like, we have no idea.
We rolled up in I guess what year was it? 90, was it 91, where like Yugoslavia like went civil war?
Yeah.
We had a show, And we're Americans, we're dumbasses. There's no internet, there's no phones, we're not reading the fucking papers. We show up to the club like, we're the fucking band, we're here. And there's nobody there. And the guy opens the club and he's like, what are you guys doing here? And we're like, we're the band. And he's just like, are you crazy? Like, they're closing the borders in that matter of hours. Like, we're about to have a civil war. Like, you have to get out of here. Like, you're gonna die. And we were just like, what are you talking about? Like, we got a show tonight, man. We're Grill Biscuits. And he was just like, you have to leave now.
Go.
And we're like, where do we go? And he's like, that way, Italian border. Like, you get to Italy now. And we were like, all right, I guess we'll go swimming. And we like literally like left the country like a day or two before like the borders were shut and it was like a war. And we were there during we had just finished the tour and the Berlin Wall came down. I was like in Kreuzberg like that week, like when
Wow.
that too.
Yeah.
Be a stupid reference like the Forrest Gump ism of like Gorilla Biscuit European history.
But then also like it's such a, like an amazing moment for, I guess it's not just history, music in general, right? Like this Nirvana blowing up period to Green Day blowing up to Rage Against the Machine blowing up. There's like so much kind of upheaval that's music wise, at least coming from like punk culture
Mm-hmm.
at that point too. Like it must have been a wild time to be touring during that moment. Like were shows getting perceptibly bigger post Nirvana for you guys, or was that crossing over for you at all, or no?
I
Like no
think
effects. Fat Mike talks about it for no effects. So
yeah, I mean NoFX is like we actually I think in the 89 tour, we were co-headlining a lot of shows with NoFX
what a
and
weird bill.
really weird. But they were already like we were never I maybe I just speak for myself. I never had a preconceived like idea or a master plan. I just kind of roll through life and I just, I have like certain things.
Yeah.
So we would like play and Fat Mike was like just finished like college. He was talking about like the thing he wrote on pornography as like his like senior dissertation or whatever, and playing chess. And I was like, I don't care, man. You know what I mean? Like he's trying to like get something going. And I'm like barking up the wrong tree. I mean, I've known Mike since the 80s and it's just like, all right, whatever, dude. And I remember being on stage one night watching them play and they played after us and the drummer's like playing and he's like, you guys had a better show tonight. Yeah, you took it tonight. Yeah, we'll go get you guys tomorrow. And I'm like, dude, play drums. Like fucking I'm not judging what's happening. You know what I mean? Like, and they became like this huge festival band, this huge band, and it's a weird thing to see. Like, but I feel like they were in for the long haul as like a band. They knew what they were like going for. Like California always made the. I always say this: California always made the money, and we got the credibility, and we would rather switch places.
Yeah.
It's like you guys can have it. We'll take the $300,000 payday for a festival. It's just like it's just a weird, it's a strange thing. But I don't know. I mean, ultimately we all wind up in the same long dirt nap. So it's like I guess the legacy is the legacy you leave and or like how you carry.
Well, you make a lot of, yeah, that is a really great point because like the coastal differences to the way punk and in particular hardcore was kind of taken up. Like Fat Mike calls NoFX a hardcore band. They that's a hardcore thing to them. And hardcore punk was so much bigger there. Whereas I think on the East Coast it was never quite as big and never the opportunities for label stuff weren't really there in the same sort of way. Like Rev moved out west, right? Like people move out west to
Yeah,
make it in the music industry.
that's the thing. Like there's bands, but I mean, I understand it, like, because the adolescents or like the descendants or social distortion, like that's easy listening. That's happy songwriting, It's not hardcore. It's punk and it's poppy, but it's not hardcore. Like you don't sit down while you're making dinner and listen to Victim in Pain. You know what I mean? Like that's
We
not,
do in my house, god damn it.
damn kids, you better listen to this, but eat your vegetables. But I think, it's a different thing. So of course that's going to be more palatable to somebody than like something, like fucking whatever, Madball or Sick of It All. It's like the angst, and it's for a certain time, it's for a certain person, and it's for it's character building, I guess, where yeah, Descendants song is going to make you want to, apologize to your girlfriend and have a great summer. Where something else is going to want to make you get arrested for fighting against the middle management at your job. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there's just a difference in the music. So of course the pay grade is going to be different because you're going to put more asses in seats, and you're going to be an anchor to get people to show up. Where I think like that's the thing now, like with us, where I think the experiences of playing all these festivals and all these different shows through the years, we're able to do both. We're able to play the piss ridden beer soaked club and really have a great show, but we're also able to play a festival show or a mixed thing, where you're playing something else or playing to different people, but you're able to create the intimate vibe and also create the festival vibe. Does that make sense, right? But I think it's also like right now we're like in the city. I'm working on something different. Where we're working on uh, a festival sort of event, a 3-day thing that's a tattoo event and a music event, and it's in July. And I'm trying to create that same thing where I'm trying to create my vibe, but also bands that are going to have a draw for tattoo people and for punk people and all this other shit. So it's like I'm trying to like kind of take all the experiences that we had before and create a new experience and a new event for the same like-minded people, but as I don't know, more of an adult kind of event where it's not just one thing, it's more of a lifestyle thing. So I think that's the thing with like the East Coast and the West Coast. There's just different lifestyles, but I think we can, we marry those together at festivals and shit like that.
Yeah, like I'm fascinated by that relationship that kind of happens because hardcore it starts on the West Coast and then it's kind of brought back. It lands in DC, goes to Boston, then comes to New York, and there's sort of this weird conflict in the beginning that's become very storied, but then hardcore really finds home in New York. Like the seriousness of hardcore, the do-it-yourself thing, it just seems to connect with, I guess, the poverty of a lot of kids in New York and the reality of New York.
I think, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, for an East Coast guy, I would say it started on the East Coast, but that's just our take on it. I
You guys perfected. I'm not taking that away from you, Civ.
Yeah, I'm
But
just saying. I mean, I didn't. I see that's the thing too. What people don't understand. Like to me, I'm new school. I'm not old school. I'm second gen at best. You know what I mean? Like so when people are like, "Oh, you old school dudes," and I'm like, or like, you guys started. I'm like, I didn't start shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like I know Vinny Stigma and Harley and John, like and Jimmy, like that's who started HR. You know what I mean? Like that I was just a little bit of a torchbearer for what was to come and try to keep it, not gatekeep it, but try to there's rules to it. People don't understand that too. Like there's rules to what is hardcore and what is a hardcore band and what is the mission statement. And that drives me crazy too when people claim it, like fucking Anthrax. I mean, people still get like feel like, yo, let it go. And I'm like, I'll never let that go.
beef ain't
You
over.
know, I'll never let that. You put New York hardcore in your shit. I'll never let that go. You know what I mean? Even I'm friends with fucking dudes in Biohazard. You know what I mean? That wasn't a hardcore band to me. They were a metal band from Brooklyn and they're cool and they play hardcore shows, but that's not what it is. And that's just my opinion, But I just there's again, it's like getting in the vans, putting in the time. Like you can't claim, so even going to shows, even showing up to shit. Like people would say things to me like, oh, remember that time, we went to this show or that show, and I'd be like, I remember going, but you weren't there. Or like, remember that time? And I'm like, you weren't in. There was like six of us in a van, dude. You weren't in the van. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're remembering a story fondly that is not your memory. And it's like I don't say shit like, oh yeah, A7 was sick. I never went to A7. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm just be realistic about that kind of shit history.
And I think that's the difference also between East Coast and West Coast. Like all those West Coast bands, and a lot of it because the shows got so violent, but they became metal bands, they became country groups, they went prog rock for a couple years. In New York, Agnostic Front, Murphy's Law, other bands obviously have kind of kept that going. So when you got into it, it's not like there was like a changeover in the scene. That scene, you were tapping into a continuity and
That was,
consistency.
that was the difference. I mean, for us, like we weren't trying to. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some people that played in bands, I remember hearing say like, "Fuck that!" Like I'm into metal. Like I want to be in a metal band eventually, or I want to do this eventually. And I was just like, eventually, like I'm just living here and now. Like there's no eventually for me. I'm not. There's no master plan. And if you're just using hardcore to play shows because you can't play metal shows, then go fuck yourself. Like get out of here. I don't want any of that. But I think like we played in Europe with Excel from California. They were like a fucking rock band, you know what I mean? They were playing like hardcore shows. And I don't know. I think the West Coast thing has always just been, I don't know, there's just like a different vibe. The shows were bigger, there was more people going to shows, there was more punk, there was a lot more like Mexican Latino kind of vibe with Suicidal. It was just a bigger thing. New York is just a smaller city. And it wasn't even in like Brooklyn or Queens. It was like you're on the Lower East Side in like this small club. It was very, very small. I think Boston was like that too in a way in DC. But I think once the Bad Brains like came to New York, that it was in like, those bands were they kind of solidified New York as a scene. But we didn't want to, I don't think we wanted to be metal or like rock in those days. It was like we made our own thing, and we were just going to defend it and keep it the way it was, like it wasn't like we were like, oh yeah, we're all gonna, until the 90s, when the 90s started happening and major labels started coming in. And like, I remember In Effect came around with these like leather jacket, these like leather sleeve, like
Varsity jacket type thing.
varsity jackets. Yeah. And we were like, fuck, man, I want one of those jackets. Like I want to be on In Effect. Like I want a fucking jacket. It's like all they had to do is make a fucking flashy jacket. We were like, I'm in on that shit. Like, fuck, they got jackets.
We'll
Like,
sell our soul for a cookie.
yeah, man, I didn't know there was jackets. Yeah, I'm in.
But like you're saying, you had that conflict when Civ did have that opportunity to sign up because, like you're saying, this is different than a lot of that first wave punk stuff when hardcore comes because we're doing it in service of hardcore. You're not doing it because you want to like get to that next level necessarily. You're doing it because you want to be a part of this thing.
Yeah,
And this thing is ultimately pure and special. And I get it. Like I get what it feels like to be at that moment. Luckily being called fucked up and looking the way I did, I was limited. But like I
I
get
always
where you're like,
appreciate. I always appreciated about you guys. I was like, these are guys who have no higher lofty career goals. They're just going to be punk, they're hardcore, and that's it. And they're good with that. I respected it.
but then you have that opportunity where all of a sudden, oh my God, like this label wants to sign us, or we get to tour with this band, and it's like, do I, like you're saying, you've got so many unique experiences that come out of these opportunities, and you're not going to have them again. So do
Yeah.
you laugh at it and walk away, or do you go into it? But then there's that baggage because we're the mascots. We're the one that are going to have to take the shit. We're the face of this sellout move.
Yeah. You have to go into it. I learned to go into it knowing that, and this is going to sound like a not a great positive view, but after you get burned so many times, you have to go into it accepting that you're being used, and by the bands that are having you open for credibility and for cool points, and like Turnstile's going through it now, where they're the new cool kids, and if you're a big band and you use them, it'll give you some street cred and give you some flavor back that you might not have, or it'll make you seem like you're current, or like you're on top of shit. And those guys are riding the wave perfectly, like pro surfers. And no matter what people say about that band, I remember those guys playing with us 10 years ago in Philly and in like Alabama. They're a fucking hardcore band, and they just are their career path is masterful. It's like they can teach in 10 years they'll be teaching a class on how to grow your band at Harvard, and be successful, and navigate music, because they're doing it. But I think once you say to yourself, okay, you guys are using me for credibility, or you just like the band and you're giving back. Like when we went on tour, no doubt, like Tony was just like, we fucking love, Gorilla Biscuits. We love Civ, and we have the opportunity to take whoever the fuck we want out. So why not, And we tried to do that a few times with bands that we just liked, or older bands that we liked, or like contemporary bands that we liked, where it doesn't matter who plays. Now we really consciously, in the last, few years, where we've been working with my friend Scanlon. He's like Rain Man of like hardcore booking to me. Like he just knows what's going to work together, and like he's the one that put us together, and he just can sell out shows. It isn't us, it isn't me. It's the booking agent sometimes, who understands what the world wants and what kids want, what people want, and it works. But when we're able to, we're doing it now, where like we're going to play these small shows, and we're just going to make them like cool. We're playing with Killing Time and like Murphy's Law, and then contemporary, and then like younger bands, like who are going to be a good fit and make sense with us. And it's about the show, and that's what people don't realize. Some booking agents are just like, oh, you'll be fine, just throw on the cheap bands so you don't have to pay, and you'll pay $500 for 3 bands, and you guys will make money. And it's like, yeah, well, yeah, but then now the mascot has to make sure 800 people show up through social media begging, or giveaways, or some other cheap trick that people want you to do.
Yeah.
So that's another embarrassing like kind of thing you want to do, or don't want to do, I should say.
Like it just seems like you guys are a lot more at peace with your legacy now as a band than you were maybe in
I don't even, I
2006.
think, well, you know what it is? It's not like in a way like too big to fail, but it's kind of like, what can you do? Like our track record and our history, I think, is long enough and secure enough where I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, we did all that, and we're cool with it, and I think we presented ourselves as best we could for decades, and we still try to bring the show and make it something cool. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. I mean, trust me, I try not to do embarrassing things or cringy things or play things that are going to be, stupid or embarrassing. But,
Like I'm sure
besides,
have you guys ever been offered like an opening slot in this era of the band, like in terms of like going out and opening for like a Fallout Boy, or a band that
um,
you've influenced? Because like that's the thing, like
we,
you're saying with No Doubt, you influenced No Doubt,
yeah,
right? Like you've influenced a lot of these
well,
bands.
at least they enjoyed the music. I might have influenced Gwen's style and singing styles. I don't want to take full credit. But, I mean, we've been offered some stuff. I mean, we've been offered stuff by, I'll just say like, not contemporary, but maybe like one generation below, who have a false sense of their own legacy or history, and offered us a show or opening slot, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'll just do my own show. That's cool. Like there's bands that are whatever, 10 years uh, newer than us, I'll say, or even more, that are having a resurgence, or like they feel they can rewrite their history and by booking a certain size room and acting like it's gonna sell out. Or there is a lot of, I hate to like talk to myself about in this like way, but people will say things to they like, we want that GB money, or we want that GB size show, or we were in the same, some California bands will be like, oh, those guys, we want what those guys are doing. And it's like, well, we'll do that. You can't just say you want it. You got to do it. So if you can book that room and fill it up, then awesome. But if you can't, don't drag my name into it. You know what I mean? Like, don't use me as like your benchmark. You know what I mean? Like, I don't say shit like that about pay, or like my self-worth from comparing to the band. You know what I mean? It's like you get out of this, say it's punk. You get out of it what you put into it. The Fallout Boy covering what they cover, what start today or something, right?
Yeah,
I think
on the
covered.
Tony Hawk game.
Yeah, that hurt a little bit,
That
but
hurt.
I was like, I thought it was a little strange, but it was cool. Like, but at first I was like, oh, you know, we're a hardcore band. And then like that, those guys covering that, it was like a little cringy at first for me. And then I was like, all right, that's cool. But at first I was like, I don't know, you know,
Because that must have, I would just to be the most crass level, there must have been some level of remuneration, right? You'd think.
I mean, yeah, but nothing really worth, um, you know, nothing life changing, you know. But even that, it's like that's the same thing though. It's like what's the number to, you know, I don't know, like Olivia Rodrigo wants to cover Biscuit Power. Dude, what's the number where that's cool? You know what I mean? Like
50 cents for me. That's fucking sick out of the gate.
my daughter would be psyched on it.
Yeah.
But that's the one of the great uh pluses in my life right now is that friends from hardcore or the punk scene are in positions of like tour management or managers or road managers or in bands. And the guilt of not helping me out with favors for my kids is stronger than their job titles. So it's great. I'll definitely press a motherfucker for like help getting into a show. I'm like, just get me on the list, get me on the friends or family, I'll pay. Just get me in the conversation.
Yes.
And
I feel
it's
this.
really worked out. It's
Anything I can do to make my kids stoked. Like I got hit up by Priyanka, who won Drag Race Canada, and she's doing a video, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to make a cameo. There's no money." And I'm like, if it'll impress my kids, that's fucking priceless. I will
I'm
be
in.
down to shoot. Yeah, fuck, I don't
Yeah,
care.
my when my 9-year-old, soon to be 10-year-old, is obsessed with Taylor Swift. And last year she was playing New York, and it was basically like trying to get an audience with the Pope.
Yeah.
Like you can't get there from here, you know. And I'm into projecting positive vibes and manifesting, but I was like, my wife's like, we can do it, we'll figure it out, we'll do it. And I'm like, I don't think we are. I was like, I don't think we're not figuring this one out. And hardcore came through at the end. And yeah, we got the kid in there, and she was over the moon. And then another one of my buddies pulled some strings, and Olivia Rodrigo happened. So I'm just like, we're on a fucking roll with making dreams come true for these kids. So it's good.
I I think that's the thing about hardcore that I love, and punk too, but specifically hardcore is that this web that goes around the world, and the influence of this stuff is immense, be
Yeah,
it like culturally, but we're also like completely anonymous to the mainstream world.
Well, that's the thing. It's like there's that's the cool thing about it, and like where I feel really fortunate is that shadow world of artists and musicians and writers and um, tastemakers to a degree and designers that all came out of that scene because they were like alternative, quote unquote alternative, or they were punk, or they were just weirdos and misfits. And they know our legacy and they're pushing their thing forward, whatever their case may be. So it is a very small club, even though it seems like it's bigger now. Like people, my wife has a store in the city, a vintage store, and like people will come in, whether it be like actors or like actresses, designers, like collectors, and it'll come up, or like people come in for a job and they have like GB tattoos or straight edge tattoos. And she'll like laugh at it and say like, oh, you like Gorilla Biscuits or something, and they're like, how do you know Gorilla Biscuits? And she's just like, oh, I'm married to Civ, and they're just like, oh, she just yelled. It's more like, how the fuck does everyone know who Gorilla Biscuits is? but it's just like it always comes up.
I was thinking about that though. How do people, everyone know about Gorilla Biscuits? Because you think about like this band, and because of the adversarial relationship between MRR and New York hardcore, you guys didn't really benefit from MRR coverage in any sort of real way. Yet
No,
this is like a
they
global
were,
thing, right? Like
uh,
kids in Japan are influenced by you guys. There's like youth crew stuff, yourselves and Youth Today being together on this one, but certainly GB, I think, because Start Today became like the record, I think, afterwards. But that's just kind of through word of mouth, this
yeah,
culture that spreads around the world.
that's why it's real and why I try to keep it not like Rick to life, but try to keep it real. I I it happened in a natural way. It happened in a real way. And there's a movie quote from a New York movie, and it's the guy says, the streets are watching. And that's how I judge how I carry myself and what I'm doing. It might not be a year or 5 years or 10 years, but it's a 20-year game, a 30-year game where the streets are watching. And if I say I'm going to do something, or I ask for a favor, or I want to put something together, people will, bless you, people will, people will usually come to my side or my aid because of the track record of keeping shit, street, or keeping it real, or keeping it honest, or not changing or deviating, being consistent in what I, do or say as a person or as a band. I think that's you can count on certain people. Other people I'm friends with who I ask things of, they politic it, they weigh it out. Is it beneficial to me? Especially people who are already famous or rich, or those are the people when you ask, they ask me a favor, and I don't know if they know I'm conscious of this, but they ask me for something and I'll do it as a favor. I'm not doing it to see what it's doing for me. I'll do it because they asked. And if it's within my power or wheelhouse to do, I'll do it. But if I ask them and it falls on deaf ears because they didn't see the end game for them, or like long term for them, then I make a mental note of that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this is a one-sided relationship. I'm not into like one-sided relationships. And I'm not into like the long hustle. Just like, don't do it because you're trying to slow play me, down the line for something else. Like, do it because you should, or just say no.
That's the thing, is like no matter how much money you get, the anxiety never seems to go away for these people. Like they're always second guessing themselves. Like it's
It
never,
doesn't matter if you help me do something, or you
yeah,
you shout me out on like your, fucking 100 million followers. Just shout me out.
yeah, yeah. It's
You're gonna fuck
weird.
you. We think you're gonna lose a follower by helping somebody out. You know what I mean?
Well, it's that thing that just never goes away. And I guess in that period where Civ's signed to the major label and you guys are in that world, like that's the antithesis of what you're talking about. Like the glad handing and say it one thing to your face, another thing behind the closed door of the music industry is
Yeah, I mean,
soul crushing.
I wrote songs about it on the second record, where it's just like about that, trying to steal the identity, use the legacy in your favor, and like market and package something that shouldn't be packaged and can't be packaged. And I'm glad it wasn't packaged, and I'm glad it wasn't sellable. And then moving on, I mean, we literally, those basically what happened was Green Day happened, Offspring happened, Rancid was about to happen. Everybody was in a fucking spin trying to find the next thing. The East Coast didn't have the next thing. They got the Civ, the two songs, the Civ thing in the video. That was going to be the next thing. That was going to be the East Coast answer to the Offspring. But again, it's West Coast, West Coast, West Coast. They'll sell records. We don't sell records. And when we got signed on that, we had a good run. They considered it a minor hit. There was some pissing contest between a radio station guy and our head of Lava Atlantic, where they literally said, the guy from K-Rock said, I want to break this record. I want to break this song on K-Rock. And they had some beef or like friendly, shit. And he was like, no, we're going to break it on MTV. I found out this years later after we're already done. And he's like, no, let me break it on K-Rock. No, the video's enough. It's strong enough. So I'm going to break it. And he's like, if you don't let me break this fucking song, I love the song. If you don't let me break this song, I'm not going to play it at any K-Rock stations. And he was like, we don't need it. I mean, true to his word, he played him on no K-Rock stations. That would have broke the fucking
Oh
band.
yeah, that like K Rock. So went the world where K Rock went back then.
Exactly. So, but our guy decided that morning that he was just going to throw a coin in the air and see if he can make us have a gold record or not by just MTV. So we had what was considered a minor hit from MTV. Then the second video, our management was just like, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Everything's good. We're rolling. So there was no consideration of what the second video should be, what kind of video. It should have been like a No Doubt style live video where you can see the vibe of the show and people understand. No one understood what the band was. It was like a novelty joke video. So it was funny. The song was good, but we didn't understand who you guys were, what kind of crowd it was, what genre it was. So then after the second record, they were like, there's hits, there's fucking hits. We got 5 singles on this record, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. So I'm like, awesome. And then we took a meeting, and the meeting used to be 6 or 7 people. There'd be food, there'd be platters, there'd be water, there'd be everybody high-fiving, backslapping. And then when the second record came out, the meeting was one dude looking out the window and like 3 bottles of water on the table. And I was like, oh, we're done. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's done. That vibe is done. No one showed up. No one cares. The record's, they're like, oh, record's coming out. I'm like, no one cares. And basically they were like, pick a single. And we were like, well, what do you guys think? They're like, well, they're singles, but what do you guys want? Well, we're going to send it to Boston. We'll test in Boston. And if it does well, we'll push it. If it doesn't do well, that's it. And I was like, wow, like you guys spent like $350,000 like last year doing this record and supporting it and like studio time. And that's it. So we chose the song we should have chose. I knew we should have chose a different song, but it was like a consensus thing. And it was like, because I was like, we should choose a song Charlie wrote that tests well when we play live and no one knows the song. And that was Haven't Seen Myself in a While. And I was like, that's that, you don't know. You roll the fucking dice, you're flipping the coins. And then we took another meeting and they were like, okay, listen, where they were moved on to Kid Rock at that time. And I remember one of the guys that worked at the record label, he used to show up in like Creepers and he had like a chain wallet and like he had like his fake 50s shirt on and he'd come to shows. And then I saw him on the Warped Tour, and Kid Rock did the Warped Tour. He did like the open air stage thing. He would open up before his record broke. And the guy had on like a red like a velvet tracksuit, like a Kango. And I just literally I was like, dude, how do you sleep at night, man? And he was just like, I was like, this is fucking embarrassing. He was like a George Costanza kind of a character. But we they were like, listen, we got the call from the top dog, and we're moving on to women's singer songwriters. Like, this punk thing is done for us. And I was like, oh, great. I'm glad I spent a year writing that record. Thanks.
So
Yeah.
was it still Lava for the second record, or is it just Atlantic straight up at that point?
It was Lava Atlantic still. Yeah, it was
Uh,
the imprint.
it's a weird imprint, right? Goldfinger, you guys, Real Big Fish.
It was basically, I mean, I didn't know the game, and I didn't know that I had the power that I really did have, because it's a boys club. Your manager knows the lawyer knows the guy at Atlantic. They all are, they're in control of everything. The people that, those three things: your lawyer, your money guy, your manager, and the head of the label, they all have your fate worked out before you do anything. So they all pretend they work for you and you're in control, but you're not. And they it was basically like, you're on Atlantic, but if you go Lava Atlantic, I can control what happens, and I can safeguard this, and we can get you guys what you want. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, I have the same reach as Atlantic, but we have our guy who's in charge of Atlantic, but we're using his imprint. Who cares? It really just was about, I mean, that whole time was so weird. The bands were so weird. 90s music was pretty horrible. It's kind of soulless, I
It's
think.
interesting too. Lava Records also, like with Goldfinger and Real Big Fish, had success. It seems like getting a first single with a
Yeah.
strong video into rotation.
Well, that was the thing. Like, you can make like, I remember being on the Warp Tour, and I got, someone was like, hey, you got to go call, Scott. You know, he wants to talk to you. And I had to go to a payphone, and I called the office, and he's just like, hey, we just got accepted as a buzz clip. It's going to play 18 times a day or something on starting Monday for like 6 weeks. Congratulations. Like, you're famous. And buzz clips were huge at that time, and like, I hung up, and I was like in the middle of some dirt field, playing like the Warp Tour somewhere in the middle of America. And it was the first time I ever I stopped, like, and looked both ways crossing the street. And I was like, okay, I might actually have something to live for here. Like, this might actually work out. Uh, Fuck. Okay. So then I was like, this could be life changing. And it wasn't a very small, degree. And I remember being home from tour, and, touring was nonstop. And I remember being home in the city. I was living in the West Village on Thompson and Bleecker, and I remember sitting down, and turning on MTV, and like, it came on, like, just organically, like I wasn't watching it at like you know, at something, or an editing room or something, and it came on, and I was like, holy shit, like, that's really, we're on, MTV right now. So it was kind of like such a trip. It was cool. I remember seeing I think the same day, No Doubt, because we toured, they opened up like the Warp Tour, and that I'm Just a Girl video came on, and I was like, oh, they're done. That's a monster. I was like, they are fucking, they're millionaires. They're done. I was like, it was cool.
It's wild. Like I remember taking the bus from Belfast to Dublin with Fucked Up to play a show and getting the call from the label being like, "You're on the cover of the NME. Your life's never going to be the same again." I'm like, "Wow, this is all worth it." And they're like you're saying, these things maybe at one time would have changed people's lives, but by the time I was achieving it, it did not make a lick of
Oh yeah, I
difference.
know. It was the same thing. It was like Green Day had a buzz clip, and that was it. They were done. But then the fifth time, or the sixth band that gets a buzz clip in that genre, it's watered down already, and people are like, oh, okay, we know. It's literally it's lightning, and it's lottery. It's like, you can't control most of the shit. I mean, you can grind it out, and you can do hard work, and you can do the stuff, but it's just, the universe decides what, like, goes down. And I mean, again, like, I can't ever complain about any of it because it was never anything I was shooting for. So it was all like these happy accidents and like cool things that I was got to be part of for timing and from saying yes. So, I'll never be like, oh, I wish we would have done this, we wish we would have done that. It was just like I got to do so much cool shit. And like I'm friends with Frank Iero, and he said to me one day, and I always coin his phrase. He just says, "I'm just a dad with a weird job," and I'm just like, me too. Like, because you know what I mean. Like, I mean, I remember what's this? Dave Grohl was just like, my kids don't give a shit. They want to fucking. My son needs a smoothie, and he needs it stat. Like that's all he's concerned about. He doesn't care that I'm a rock star.
And it's even worse for our kids because, well, I don't mean to speak for you, but like I'm the weird dad. Like I talked about it with Mike Kinsella recently, where you go to school and you look around, and no matter how much, it's like that meme of the guy at the party in the corner. No one knows that I'm a legend.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
it doesn't mean shit to these people that have real jobs.
Oh no. But I know I'm like embarrassed for my not so much. My older daughter was worse because she's 22, and when they go to a private school in Manhattan with like finance people and diplomats, like like one like my middle daughter, her best friend in school, her dad was the ambassador to the Netherlands. And 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 he, this poor guy's got to hang out with us, and he thinks it's great. And I'm just like, he came up state. We were at our house upstate, and he was just like, "Did you ever play festivals in the Netherlands?" I said, "Yeah, I played ping pop." And he was like, "What year?" "I was there. I fucking love ping pop." And it's just people are just people, but you do feel embarrassed the way like you look, and like I'll show up or I'm covered head to toe in fucking tattoos, and I'm at this nice. I'm trying to give my kids, a better future and a nicer existence than I had. So like that's where I focus on trying to not change like who they are, but just their experiences and their circle, enlarge their circle. Because no matter what nature nurture, you still are raised by me. So fucking sorry, but this is what you're gonna turn out to understand, like, think like, and my wife's got a totally like awesome but alternative weird job that nobody has, like a curated a woman's vintage store that, again, she's in a thing where it's like she has it girl, famous people, clientele, but she doesn't talk about it to keep it. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't want to open up the floodgates and have all these fan people knowing. And the people that she does have as clientels don't want her to because they want to keep it secret. So she's on this totally weird, like kind of like underground tip too, with her curated style. So like both our jobs are completely weird. And I always say to my kids, like, hey, sorry, you can't pick your parents. It happens. Is what it is. Could be worse.
You should have flipped that Dutch ambassador a copy of the Flex 7-inch. Be like, motherfucker, I got a live record from the Netherlands.
Yeah, well, what's up? What do you know about this? Like,
Yeah.
he's more into like the EDM stuff. He's more into like that kind of like shit. But he went to all the shows and he knows stuff. He's excited. We're going to play a show in the Netherlands. They're excited to come. But we also have another group of friends at the lake who are just, we refer to our like regular friends or our lake friends, and they're like lawyers and they own companies and like whatever. And but they think it's like the best thing ever. They've come to shows, like we stick them on stage, like in the state's place, and they have the best time. Our school friends and lake friends, and they're like our normal friends. And or like I refer to them as civilians, like I'll bring them to a show and they're like, people look at me, I'm like, oh, they're like normal people. Like,
Like stand beside Rat Bones over there.
yeah, Rat Bones. Watch my friend Jen over there. But it's yeah, or like be in a conversation talking or somebody, or they'll be at the house and like I'll get off the phone and it'll be like something like that, like someone's name, and they're like, "You have a friend named?" I'm like, and my daughter's like, "He has friends named everything."
My dad's got some strange buddies.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's just
it
like, yeah.
yeah, like the interacting with normal people. Like when I do it, I find it gives me a greater appreciation for how lucky I am to have this subculture to retreat into.
Yes, but it also makes me go like, fuck, huh? Pensions and 401ks and salaries. You get a money every week that you can count on, isn't that? That must be nice. You
But will they have all these cool 7 inches to leave their
don't have
kids?
they don't have piles of vinyl behind them. They definitely
Oh,
don't organized. I noticed those. I saw them.
so
They don't have them.
I still need one of those crazy GB. I think it's the third press on like that camo green vinyl. I think it's the
Fuck.
third, second press. There's some
7 inch?
yeah, there's like a weird like it's like
I don't even know about that.
there's some weird stuff from the 90s that I
I
like.
asked Jordan. Camel
Yeah.
green?
Yeah, you gotta go to the you gotta get in the vault. Take a look around.
I have access to the vault. I actually accessed the vault for some artwork recent, like a couple of years ago, for some guys that were trading paintings, and they wanted some vinyl, and it was like vinyl that I didn't have because I never cared about it. And I asked Jordan, and he was like, "Yeah," and he sent me stuff, and I was like, I took a picture. I was like, "Is this what you guys looking for?" And the guy's like, "What the fuck? You said you didn't have it." I said, "I didn't." And he's like, "How'd you get it?" I said, "Listen, my relationship with Revelation is much different than your relationship with Revelation." I was like, "Don't worry about how I got it. Like, is this the 7 inch you want? Because it means absolutely nothing to me." And it was a band, like just like some shit. And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, let's trade."
Is Start Today the only hardcore record that was kept in press during the wilderness years too? Like I think it's like Start Today is like the only.
Arcade is never, I don't think, ever not been pressed.
Yeah, because
It's
it's not true with the Youth of Today stuff, obviously, and like not true with like certainly the Warzone stuff, No for an Answer, like all that stuff.
Jordan has told me that Start Today is still his highest selling like yearly record always. It's just always He's always sells for some reason. Not that he has the accounting for it, but it's definitely the best selling record on Rev, I think.
I was always shocked. I went to the Lookout record store when I was a kid, and they would get the Mortem thing, and they're like, "Yeah, Operation Ivy outsells Green Day all the time. Like Operation Ivy is consistently the biggest selling Lookout record by far."
So great record.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like Start Today, it's a record that every generation that gets in, it's like, okay, what's the
That's
starter
well,
pack?
that's the thing too, that that's the thing you have to realize with like us, where we're not we're able to, I don't know, we're like, I would always say it was like our generations, and this is a long shot and not a brag, but like the only thing I compare it to is like our generation's like out of step, where you have to know that record if you're going to have a punk history or understand any of it. So if you're going to claim hardcore, like you need to know Out of Step, to know Start Today, you need to know, Victim in Pain, Age of Quarrel, uh, Pay to Come, whatever, or Eye Against Eye or Quickness. You have to know those records. I mean, there's 100 records that you must know, but those are, we're lucky enough to be in that thing where if you need to know an 80s whatever melodic hardcore band from New York, like you need that record. So it's just, we're fortunate to be in that conversation. Like we're getting, we got offered to play with like, the Circle Jerks and Negative Approach, and like, 16-year-old me is just like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, how are we in that conversation? So
Because I think like those are great examples. There's not a lot of great hardcore LPs. I think there's a ton of incredible hardcore EPs and 7 inches, but like the LP is a format that doesn't necessarily lend itself to this genre because it's such a live thing.
it was also hard to, you're dealing with teenagers who can't keep a thought in their head, and they're just thinking about like fucking girls and doing dumb shit, and then you expect them to like write a full record and be consistent and be able to like act like adults or like professionals. You know what I mean? Like we used to get yelled at in like the fucking studio by Don Fury sometimes for just like fucking off. He didn't care because the meter was running, but we'd like kind of start yelling at each other when we realized we didn't have the money to like finish recording a fucking song. But you know what I mean? Like to hold it together for a full record as a teenager or a 20-year-old, it's kind of an achievement in itself, and just to even have the wherewithal to like practice and um do the concepts for like the artwork or t-shirts or get things done. I mean, that's a DIY kind of a thing. That's why like it kind of fucked us up where like we can't have normal jobs, but we also have to be productive. You know what I mean? So it's like I can't answer anybody. But at the same time, I have to make my own way in the world and be responsible for my actions. But I think that comes out from that shit. You get ruined when you get to live that lifestyle.
Yeah, it's like leaving the matrix. Like it would be really hard to go back in and to care about the same things. Like obviously everyone cares about money, but
I could never have a job. I like a normal job. I mean, I work consistently and I have a schedule, but like a regular, like going into an office or something, I wouldn't be able to do it. I could maybe do like something like if someone left me alone with like a parks department truck and they said like clean up the park and fix that bench, I'd be like, all right, I could totally do that. I'm into that. I can make that nice.
I read a book one time about why like creative thinking and time management, and it was like why executives are able to just be just idea. Like these great thinkers are just like able to be that because they have people around them that are caring about all the minutia so they can just exist in the
That's
space of having ideas.
that's what I'm going through now, and it's awesome because I'm saying that we're working on this event, and my wife is taking on the lion's share of all the brutality. Like she is getting punched in the face 100 times a day working on this tattoo convention with me, and she's just taking it. And our friend Chris he's basically Neo in the Matrix. He is the computer man and the graphics man, and he just does everything for us. And he's luckily a heavily tattooed hardcore nerd, and he's just like, I'm on it. Don't worry about it. We'll do it. I'll get it done. And he gets it done in things that I physically could never do. So we were talking one day and he's just like, yeah, dude, just do the CEO shit. He's like, you're the idea guy. We'll make it, we'll manifest it into an actual physical thing. He's like, your job is the ideas. That's what you're going to do. And I was like, that's like my dream job. I got a million ideas. That's all I do. It's like, I know I can pull them off. I know they can work, but if you give me the green light as my hands, then I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome.
Now you get
And
to be the Walter.
yeah, well, I mean, he's hands-on to a certain degree. He's in charge. Uh, he's the musical director. And then we had this like conversation. I'm like, listen, you're in charge of the musical direction. We know that, but on stage, let me just kind of take and run that. But he's more of I wouldn't even say he's his own idea, man. He's floating, man. He's just doing his thing. He does his thing. He's a creative force, and he's just riding it out to the end. I think he's just always gonna just be that way.
Siv, this has been amazing, and I've kept you all day. And
That's okay. It's good.
anytime you want to come back on here, man, you are always welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully it's well received and people enjoy our long frontman conversation. And yeah, no sweat, man. Thanks for having me on.